Okay, so I've got a form here. Can anyone hear me out there? Can anyone hear me?
Hello to those who've joined us. My team should be sending you a link to register for the meeting. I'm going to paste it into the chat now. If you can please follow that link and put the information in, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. You're starting in approximately 20 minutes.
Well, I'm in, but they want a form completed. Andrew, are you there? Why do we need to complete this form? Question mark. I have an email from Sarah Martin to confirm that we have the votes made for one per Can you understand the resolutions that have been presented to members are not given, not provided on time for a resolution, a meeting to be valid. When you propose to change a lease that states 3 years for the accrual for the reserves, when it is clear.
Hello, everyone. If you've just joined us, we are about 15 minutes away from starting. My team should be sending you a link to register for tonight's meeting, but I'll be pasting in the chat shortly. If you want to click on it and register, that'd be great.
Okay, so we're at the Victory Hill Management Meeting, EGM, called on the weekend. So the first adequate date for being served notice is the Monday, that then falls to the notice being received on the Wednesday. Under company law, there is actually 21 days. So that takes it to the 24th. And the day of the meeting itself cannot be covered. So therefore, we cannot have a meeting before the 25th if that resolution is deemed to be accepted and being submitted on that date. The only other resolution that they've presented is one which involves changing a lease, which cannot be enforced. So this whole meeting is an utter farce, and it's for the purposes of purely for Andrew Copley and his company and the related directors to retain their work. Cheney's are in their accounts providing a management fee of £95,000 a year. We know that they're getting 10% on other costs, which we are unable to ascertain due to not having accounts. Plus, we're also knowing that they're getting paid £120 for every tenant that has their water meter, plus £120 for consent to let, plus a £50 for a breach fee. Plus, you also get solicitors' inquiries fees. Cheney's chartered surveyors of Reading are earning very well from Victoria Management Company and are unable to provide us with certified accounts that will enable us to form an adequate opinion on what the accounts are showing. Time now is 6:20. The official start time for the meeting is another 10 minutes. So if you're watching this, you may want to hang around for 10 minutes or fast forward.
Hello to everyone who's joined us in the last 5 minutes or so. My team should be sending you a link to follow for registration. If not, I will paste that shortly. Please, if you can click on that so we can register you for the meeting, which will start in about 10 minutes. Thanks.
Okay, it's now 24 past. Another 5 minutes before we go live. Okay, for anyone on YouTube watching, this is live. This is Colin Davison. I'm one of my passions is ensuring leaseholders get a good deal. I unfortunately have a very bad deal with Victory Hill Management Company. Check out winterfulway.co.uk. You see Colin Davison's being flagged up as a very dangerous man. Why? Because this company stinks. I help other leaseholders around the country, other investors, make sure that they get the most from their property management company. And unfortunately, occasionally things stink. This generally is because there's a cooking up between a management company and its agent. The directors have a very cozy relationship, as this does, and they then have an ongoing headache, nightmare, bullying method, and it's not acceptable. We have company law, Landlord and Tenants Act. There are various sections that allow accountants or you yourself to check out the accounts and the underlying records. We have an example here where, thankfully, due to my friends and colleagues elsewhere at Leaseholders, we have different questions being posed by different people at different times. So essentially, what you see a question up here and me down here, you essentially they do not see the same thing. It's quite crazy. And they're probably listening in. And
hello to those who just joined us. We are going to get underway in a few minutes. If you've joined us and you haven't registered, please follow the link in the chat. My team will try and contact you directly as well. We'll paste the link to that form shortly. Get underway in just a couple of minutes.
That was Andrew. So the Q&A, I've got my questions and all questions. In the all, we have a MR Buck from Show All. We then have one response from Martin Edge, but my queries are not even on here. So we do a form, we fill in our details, flat numbers 17. There, your response has been recorded. Recording this as it goes. Recording every registration, we're going to record every single property. 152. We're then going to record number 176.
So to those who just joined us, I'm just getting the slides and things ready.
Right.
If you haven't, please make sure you clicked on the link in the chat to register that you're here. I'll be with you shortly.
216. Two, three, one. We rattle them off. Thankfully for 2, 3, I think it's 236 next. Next one is 254. 256. And then we then have 275. I think I missed that 254 in that block. We then do 300. We then do 332.
Everyone, we're going to start to get underway in just a second. If you haven't clicked
3,
register,
4, 4.
please do so as soon as possible.
5. 332. What else have we got in this block? We then have 362. And we then got, last but no means least, I think, is 484.
Okay, directors are ready.
Go back to Zoom.
Right, hopefully you can see my slideshow presentation. Can I get some nods just to confirm that's the case? Excellent, thank you. I know a lot of you will probably be more interested in what's happening in about half an hour's time, so I appreciate you joining us this evening. If you haven't already, please click on the registration form. The team will be messaging you that via the chat. Tonight, if you've got any questions, please issue them via the Q&A, not via the chat, via the Q&A. So if you go to your buttons down at the bottom, you can see under Q&A. Get underway in just a second. Oliver, if you can hear me, I'm just bringing you in now. Okay, I think we've got everybody here. Okay, well, welcome along, everybody. The director introduced themselves shortly. If you don't know me, I'm Andrew Copley, I'm the director of Cheney's. As part of the estate team, we look after the development. Sarah Morrison, as most of you know, is the senior property manager. Sarah Martin, the assistant property manager. Tonight, their meeting is being overseen by myself, acting as company secretary through Chancex Limited. The agenda for tonight is split into 4 key parts. Some details about the meeting itself, some information items, a statement from the chair and an update on cladding and mitigation. Then onto our voting matters, which we have a few to go through, and then a round table at the end for Q&A and a closing statement from the chair. Okay, so just procedures for tonight. Now, we wouldn't normally outline procedures at general meetings, however, under the circumstances, we felt it's important to set this out. Victory Hill Management Company Limited is governed by its Articles of Association. The EGM has been convened in accordance with those articles. The chair of the meeting is the chairman of the board, and all eligible members that are paid up will be allowed to vote, and ineligible members who are in arrears will not be allowed to vote. There is some more details on this on the link. As you can see at the bottom there, winterthorway/EGM. Give me 1 second, I just need to...
But the articles, Andrew, are 2012, and the Directors' Code, you are not following 2013. And also, there is nothing in the articles restricting access based on your non-payment.
Hello everyone, I'm Harvey. I'm Chairman of the Board of Directors. I moved to Windsor in 2007, lived there for
Matt,
6
what about?
years, and since 2013 I have been a landlord.
It seemed very subdued, I think.
I'm a leaseholder and landlord since 2015, and I've been a director since 2016.
Hi, Martin Edge. I've been a member since 2005, and I'm a director since 2014, and I was chairman from 2014 until 2 years ago, 2019.
Hi everyone, so I'm Rocky and I'm the directors again.
I'm Simon Hurst. I've been a leaseholder since 2004 when the block first opened, and lived in the estate in 2007, 2008. I've been previously a director from 2013 onwards.
No, you were a director before that, Simon, so this is your 4th time, Simon. You've not provided that truth.
Hi, I'm Peter Braceficer, and I am representing Edward Lapper, flat 361.
Hi, I'm Jazz Palmer, and I've owned a property at Winchester Way since 2004. I've been a director since 2013, 14, I think. Only recently moved away, sadly, but still have a very vested interest on the estate, obviously.
So why are we not getting all the questions from other people?
I've been an owner since 2018, Winterfell Way. Since my time here, I've set up the Neighbourhood Watch and conducted assistance with the CCTV for Hampshire Constabulary. Looking forward to the meeting.
Hi everyone, I'm Oliver. I purchased a property in Winchester Way in 2007, and I'm an owner-occupier leaseholder, and I've recently joined the board to contribute and offer the perspective of an owner-occupier and leaseholder.
Thank you. With you in 1 second.
And just to introduce myself, I'm Sheriff as well. I've just moved to Winchester Way in 2018, and I joined the board just a few weeks ago.
Interesting, not voted by the members, which is what the articles under the Directors' Code actually request the members to have that pleasure. So
thanks all. That's all of the commitment used. We also have present Sarah Morrison, many of you will know, is the lead on site.
What about the...
And also Sarah Martin, her colleague, who...
What about...
fairly recently, actually, and is getting to grips with what is a very big and complex estate. So, Andrew, are we ready?
What about, guys? Yeah, what about your conflicts of interest? Isn't that highlighted to be, because one of you as a directors has Cheney's doing the counts. So Cheney's doing the lettings of your property.
The proxy votes that have been valid are 78 to Matt Garvey. Of those, 74 are valid and 4 invalid. There are 5 proxy votes to Anne Kay. One of those is valid and 4 are invalid.
Interesting.
3 is invalid. 1 to Candice Cameron. 1 that's invalid. 2 to Colin Davison. 1 that's valid and 1 that's invalid.
Interesting.
Okay, opening
We
statement.
can guess which way this vote's going to go then, guys, can't we?
Thank you very much, Andrew. Bear with me, I'll just call my name. So, first of all, before I give the main part of my address, I want to pay a tribute to Dave Griffiths. And Dave was a long-standing director at Windsor Way. He was a really decent stand-up guy. He brought great expertise from his construction background to the board. He was professional, he was honest, he was courteous.
Interesting enough,
sadly,
in
Dave passed away
2013.
with a short illness in December. I, as chairman, I certainly miss him, as do his fellow directors. And he was a tremendous servant to all of us members here at Victory Hill. And a sad loss was indeed. So here we are, we're back for our third general meeting since June last year to consider, in essence, two vital topics. One being cladding, and the second being the management and direction of our company. And I stress it is our company, each member. We own this company, we contribute to it. Now, cladding is a national issue, of course. It's been headline news and in Parliament. It impacts on hundreds of developments that have either unsafe or unknown cladding. The volume of work and worry over and above the normal pressures of Windsor Way has been considerable. It's a crisis which has rendered many flats unsellable. And an update on our current position in regards to the application for government funding and the completion of that project will follow shortly. Now, cladding should be enough of an issue to deal with, but we've had extra worries on top of that. Because we had to tussle with the dubious behaviour of a small group of individuals. We have over 320 members who, in my opinion, have been intent on disrupting the very workings of our company. In the process, they have leached away valuable time and resources from the cladding issue and other leaseholder concerns.
Yeah, you weren't too bothered about the damages that occurred in 2016 in my property and the lifts for last year.
Process and decency have become casualties. This assault, involving persons nominated for election this evening, has manifested itself in a sham general meeting in January, conducted unlawfully, and resulting in 3 persons declaring themselves directors and 1 declaring himself company secretary. And they have collectively set out on a campaign that's included the following: unlawfully issuing false articles of association to Companies House in an attempt to gain preferential voting rights, attempting to dismiss the legally appointed managing agent, attempting to freeze our company bank account, the access to which is vital for the running of the estate, misleading a director of a local estate agent into distributing false information on their behalf. The director, once alerted to this, stated to me, and I quote, "Mr. Davison led me to believe he was something he wasn't." At the same time, we've been simultaneously accused of suspending maintenance and running up silly costs.
No, those messages were sent out before the communications.
Have encouraged the non-payment of service charges, effectively advocating that leaseholders should breach the terms of their lease. Now, this could have led to court action, counter-court judgments, and destroyed the credit ratings of those who followed this disgraceful advice. And I personally have been threatened as chairman with legal costs if I didn't compromise on a leaseholder's service charge debt. Now, we have attempted to get these individuals to desist, but they've remained wedded to the delusion that they are officers of Victory Hill Management Company. And this fantasy has persisted even when the company's solicitor has advised them otherwise. It has resulted in the board seeking legal counsel to prevent further damage to the company. And our solicitor remarked she had never seen anything like it. Despite all of this and the weight of evidence against them, I've been privy to an email from one of the antagonists, which has left me in no doubt that these individuals are determined to go to court. In short, the threat I received from one of them to run up lengthy legal bills is fast becoming a reality. Now, during this unnecessary unpleasantness, I salute my colleagues on the board and the staff at Chambers who have remained steadfast. This is in spite of being sent abhorrent anonymous emails and outrageous allegations of misconduct without a shred of evidence. A torrent of falsehoods have been published online from directors and chain staff, and these are nothing short of harassment and intimidation.
Yeah, the harassment is against me.
This group, often sent in the small hours of the morning. Every demand and dubious claim takes up valuable company resource that could otherwise be spent on cladding and genuine leaseholder issues.
Yeah, you're going to keep coming out with that comment, aren't you?
They have
But if you're not managing things effectively, then why would we trust you with a cladding cost?
Now, people have grievances and disagreements and concerns, and there's a way to resolve those.
Yeah, but you won't communicate with us. Yeah, you haven't communicated with us over 6 months.
It's just not on. I mean, my 15 years working as a director, including 10 as a managing director, the behaviour of this group is the most repugnant I've ever experienced. It's unprofessional.
Matt, you were taking pictures with your trousers down. You're the one that's of bad behaviour, my friend.
These are not directors of Victoryville Management Company. They are private leaseholders, and if they are to become directors, then it will be at the behest of members this evening in an open and transparent election. Furthermore, Colin Davison is not our company secretary, acting or otherwise. It is Chambers. This evening is an opportunity for all members to reject the unpleasant campaign that has been relentless since December. It's also a chance for members to support the legally appointed directors who have busted gut in defending leaseholders from these repellent tactics. And these tactics have included a petty resolution to remove Wayne Buckley and Martin Edge as directors. I've known both of them for nearly 10 years. In my opinion, they are individuals of the highest integrity, honesty, and dedication to our estate. Their hours spent volunteering in our interests have brought valued expertise to the company. It would be a travesty to lose them. And for what it's worth, I, Matt Garvey, I totally vouch for them as high-quality directors. And they stand in stark contrast to others whose behaviour has been egregious to the ideals of respect and integrity. So together, we, all of us, the members of our company, tonight we have the chance to decide what kind of people we want managing our affairs. I sincerely hope that good sense, fair-mindedness, and decency prevail this evening. And I will hand back to Andrew.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay, so myself and Martin Edge are now going to give an update on cladding. If you would give me reading from my notes while I'm doing this. Okay, so as you'll be aware, the cladding on cherry, holly, and elm has been found to not meet the required safety standards. The result of this is a requirement for government to replace the cladding, and it also means that in the meantime, the selling and obtaining a mortgage on the flats is difficult. Just confirm you can all hear me okay? Or I broke it on, I want to repeat it. Okay. A fire engineer was engaged to carry out the reports on the blocks. And they have worked in tandem with Ridge & Partners LLP to produce a specification for the tender. Tenders have been received, and Ridge have produced a tender analysis report, which the board have now reviewed. Martin, do you want to just talk about the tender that we received to date?
Yes, I will. So 3 tenders were received in the new year. They were reviewed by Ridge, and a tender report was presented to us, the board, in the recent days, just over a week ago. The result of the tender is pleasantly clear. 3 tenders received.
Right,
one
Q&A
of them
here.
very responsive. 2 of them.
There is only
clarifications were required, but they still remained.
all questions 6. My question's 4.
Responsive.
So the interesting thing is that my questions are not being carried across to other members.
So
no one's actually seeing it.
We have a clear conclusion about who should be our contractor. And as we stand today, we are minded to
John Green's point here.
ask to accept the contractor's proposal and ask him to proceed with the design work. But that decision needs to be ratified by the board in the next couple of days. I think, Andrew, it'd be good if you put up the timeline. So the vertical dotted line shows where we are today.
The EGM pack is full of
tremendous amount of work that's been done to get us to this stage, and the programme submitted by the preferred contractor shows that if we're able to instruct him to proceed immediately, design work takes 2.5 months, and then there's a construction programme rotating through cherry, holly and elm for completion by the end of the year. So that's in outline where we are. I'd like to just take this opportunity to give an indication of the costs, because I know that this conversation will not be complete without an understanding of what we can see from the potential costs. So in outline, and I'm not putting these numbers on the screen, so if you want to make notes and ask questions after, please do. The unconfirmed, because we haven't finished clarification negotiation with the preferred bidder, but the unconfirmed cost overall for the 3 blocks is working out at £2.54 million. Now, this work, the scope of work, includes three main elements, which is replacement of the cladding. We have also asked for pricing of replacement of the balcony decking, which the fire officer has determined is unsafe. There's a provision for cleaning of the facades, and there is also provision for improving our pigeon defences. Okay, so of this 2.54 million, the government's building safety fund will cover, and Andrew will tell you we have confirmed eligibility for funding. It will cover part of it, 2.18 million, based on the breakdown of the tender. And that would leave £358,000, which will need to be covered, which is not covered by government funding. And the leaseholders are exposed to this cost. So the £358,000 not covered is to cover balcony replacement of the balcony decking, cleaning of the facades, and the pigeon spikes. And we can hope that there will be some scope for negotiating this with the contractor. But as I say, those elements.
That's a phenomenal charge. We don't actually need to do the decking. That's just you trying to improve everything.
In cherry, holly, and elm. Andrew, let me come back to you for a moment.
That is phenomenal. 358,000.
Did
you want to talk through these so we can understand what?
Please do.
Okay, so in terms of the options, we were, as part of the tender process, there were a number of options given in terms of the material to replace what is there currently. The two which we are progressing to understand better are the aluminium panel and the fibre cement panel. Both meet the requirements of the fire safety guidance. As Martin mentioned, in addition to the work we need to do with the cladding, there's work we need to do to the decking itself. The decking is not covered by the government fund, and will need
it doesn't need doing
through reserves and through
surely.
residents. Here we are currently looking at 2 different materials: an aluminium type decking and a fibre cement type decking. Through conversations with the contractor at the moment, we are getting details on the durability and the soundproofing on these, and we should have those shortly. Back to the agenda. So in terms of the Building Safety Fund application, so over the last 2 months, I've met with Homes England, who are part of MHCRG weekly, to progress our application to the fund and also to provide them with the information they need. Shortly they'll be receiving the tender report and the chosen contractor once the board have fully approved that. The bit we need from you, if you're a landlord and you're listening, we have sent to you a state aid declaration. So anyone who is letting out their apartment must fill in a state aid declaration. I won't go into the details of what that is here, but it's a form that is required to be signed by anyone who doesn't own and live at the site. We currently have 92 returns, which is around 35%. We need 75 to 85% for the application to the fund. So if there's anyone listening and hasn't got that, then please get in contact with the team through help at End of the Way. We can send you a link to fill that in. Once the full fund application has been submitted, we have a approximate 3 to 4 week time where the government, through their lawyers and their contracted surveyors, go over and check the works that have been approved by Bridge and the board. And once we have that, they will fully approve the funding. The way it works there is that they once we are there,
That's a bit of a mess up, isn't it?
Given to the HMC up front to start with the works, and then
So
at
is
the
it-
point of the project, a surveyor from on behalf of Homes England will come in and check on the works and will release the remaining 20%. Okay, there'll be some time for questions on that Q&A, so please put those in. On the installation of the fire alarm system, waking watch. So Hampshire Fire and Rescue, as mitigation while the cladding's been replaced, required a waking watch to be put in place. It's extremely expensive and is not covered by any government funds. I say not currently covered by any government funds. However, the government have offered to pay for the capital costs of the installation of a temporary fire alarm system to the top 2 stories of cherry, elm, and holly. Following a tendering process, RES Systems have been given the contract to install this. They actually started on site today to begin the communal element to set up the connections for the system. And over the next couple of weeks, our team will be in touch with the owners of and the occupiers of those flats on the top 2 floors of the blocks to get those detectors and sounders installed in the properties. Our application to the Waking Watch Relief Fund has been accepted, and we're just waiting for the funding approval.
Andrew, I'd like to add something about birch and fir. So birch and fir are less than the critical 18 metres tall, and as such, they are not at the moment eligible for government support for any mitigation work. Now, we can't at the moment confirm whether there is or is not a requirement for any mitigation on birch and fir, because surveys of the cladding material are ongoing at the moment. And I then also wanted to mention the 4 small blocks, which are oak, maple, willow, and something else, sorry, I can't remember, which, as far as we know, are not affected by any of these risks at the moment. However, what we've seen in the last months is that there are some moving goalposts here. So at the moment, there's no exposure on those 4 blocks. Finally, just from my part to say on this, that if you wrote down the numbers earlier, you can estimate that currently the leaseholders might be looking at an exposure of up to £1,500 each. But this is only a provisional sum at the moment, but this is a warning. And we will come back to this subject when we address the reserve fund later in this meeting.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, on to the voting matters now. Hopefully you can see on the screen the slides. Of the 16 resolutions, we'll be voting on 15 tonight. The vote to approve the appointment of Mr. O'Brien will not take place following his decision to withdraw and appoint Matt Garvey as proxy. There are 5 rounds of voting, which will take place using an online poll. This link will be sent to you in the chat as we did with your registration. Those results then feed into an Excel spreadsheet at our end, and my team will count up and then produce the result. Just a reminder that each eligible member may cast only 1 vote per resolution. If you have already submitted your proxy form prior to the meeting on your voting decisions, you do not need to take part in the vote itself. Any duplicate votes will cause delays as we try to get them counted. So once we come to each point, once it's been presented and argued, we'll come to a vote where there'll be 5 minutes for you to submit your vote. My team will then be checking those as we go through. So there'll be a pause in proceedings, probably for you to go away and check on what Boris has said, and then we'll move on to the next point. As we go through, there are a number of resolutions for us to resolve. There are special resolutions requiring 75% or more of eligible votes to pass, and then ordinary resolutions which require a simple majority of 50% of eligible voters to pass. If at any time you need to access the voting forms,
special resolutions do 21 days, and you've not provided 21 days for that to be in. So therefore, that is not enforceable.
Okay, on to the first of the resolutions, numbered in your agenda pack as number 6A to G. The Chair Matt Garvey will present the case for these resolutions. Just so you know, we have no members who have asked to speak against the resolution, so please submit any questions via the Q&A.
Thanks, Andrew. I won't require 5 minutes. So our Articles of Association, which is basically our constitution, has a clause which states that anybody owing money to the company is not entitled to vote. However, they are entitled to other privileges.
Right, I will make it clear. I would like to vote against, talk against these points. So this 2BC is not valid. This is clear, and I've typed in your form.
And then if they're successful, serve upon the board. And from my perspective, I think it's kind of self-evident.
So it's pretty clear I was voting against it and wanted to talk about it. So why have you put this, not put me forward?
Who've actually paid their service charge in events, almost like a membership fee, they're the people who should be making the decisions about how the company is run and how its general meetings are conducted. And it strikes me, therefore, as perverse that you could have individuals who owe money to the company, then making decisions on how our money that people have paid, how it is spent. But let's be honest, things like general meetings, it's nearly always about income and expenditure in one form or another. Particularly,
so it makes sense that they have an input in that decision then.
Who are in arrears to the company, because directors can influence policy on debt collection, can influence policy on the amount of service charge and on payment plans. And that conflict of interest is simply unsustainable. So as well as having 4 resolutions about the privileges of members who have paid, we've also got 3 resolutions that say that if a director is in arrears, goes into arrears, they should be temporarily suspended. If they haven't cleared those arrears after 6 months, then they can be liable to a vote for removal. And any director who wants to come onto the board should pass a Financial Conduct Authority background check to ensure that we're not bringing on somebody who's going to be unreliable or have a conflict of interest. So just use the phrase I put in the EGM pack. So only those who pay should have a say at Winterful Way. And the board strongly encouraged the adoption of these articles, which would tighten up and protect the rights and privileges of members and leaseholders who pay their service charges and other fees on time.
I would like to vote against.
That's me done. Is there any, do you have somebody who wants to give a counter argument?
Yes, I would.
We've got some questions in the Q&A. I'm just going to check those and summarise to you soon.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes for questions, so they can be posed.
Right.
So most of the questions are on cladding.
I've made it clear that I would like to say against this.
You have to find one which is on this resolution.
No, you can see that I've mentioned it in here. Guys,
Resolution.
it's very clear. It's live production. You can see my words. I would like to say against this. If this carries on, it's an utter shambles, guys.
Round one, and then Andrew will be able to quickly.
A director or any member that's in arrears when they've got a valid reason, because you're not producing the accounts and not letting the records be inspected, which is a legal requirement, is a perfectly good reason why someone should hold back on the payment.
406 has asked to speak to this resolution in favour if required. Thank you, Vernon. I think what we want to do is obviously give as much balance as we can. So we're looking if anybody wants to talk about it from a point of view of opposing it.
Yes, I would, and I've stated the fact as well. So why can't you take this in?
What is the criteria the Financial Conduct Authority check will be made against? It's a really good question. I'm going to ask my colleague Wayne to unmute.
So this is a shambles. Yeah, I've stated in here that I want to vote against it, and you've ignored it. Yeah? So where is the benefit here of this system?
I mean, it is a basic background check to ensure that
it doesn't work, or you're just ignoring me.
In terms of people's backgrounds, whether they have any particular, should we say, adverse credit histories or reasons that might otherwise place them at risk from a financial perspective. There's an awful lot of information available online about this, and we'll be happy to share the relevant links to the FCA
website. Thank you very much, Wayne. Hopefully, Nick, Paul, that will answer your question. Nick puts a statement: the first resolution effectively creates a gagging order and is not democratic. The number one, it doesn't. So petitioning for a general meeting is a significant privilege. You know, it brings us all together as we've done so here. And therefore, the view is that call a petition by all means as a member. You can call a petition, but do not be in arrears. Pay your money, pay it on time as the lease asks us. It's not really a gagging order. It's basically strengthening the existing resolution, which is general meetings, and the company should be run by those who are paid in. And those who have not, by all means, can come to meetings and can listen and compose questions, but shouldn't be able to petition for a general meeting. I hope that helps a little bit. And then Jack Blogg says, do you not think that maybe this resolution blocks anyone from being a director who may have an issue with the current board? No, because it isn't the board's decision about who becomes a director, it's the members.
No, you know full well that you've co-opted people to do that. No, you just appointed them. That's a nonsense.
So it is the members' decision, and what this is, what this criteria is looking to do is to say it creates a real bad conflict of interest to have directors, we should be acting on the best of all members to be in debt to the very company they're serving.
That was one from FB. If we go down this route, should not other kinds of checks be also considered, e.g. offenders register and DBS checks?
Potentially, actually, I work for a company and everyone is required to do the enhanced DBS check, so I know a little bit about it.
Guys, we've got Des, we've got Jack and myself and Anne all asking to speak against this resolution, and you are ignoring us. This whole thing is a complete sham meeting. You have put in a document which is full of defamatory comments against everybody that opposes you, and now you're not even putting the same opposing views to let them have a legal right to state against that, even though they know there's 74 votes, which we had 83 favouring our position. So this is a total sham, and it will be brought to everyone's attention of that.
Anne McCabe asks all the current...
Hi Albert, I hope you're enjoying some of this. This is quite amusing.
Recent co-opted directors correct.
Please encourage other people to join as well. Right now, we have said, numerous people have said they want to vote against this, and we're being totally ignored. We have a situation where they've got 74 votes, which are all from defamatory comments being stated against them, against me, to say that we were going to negotiate a price to not pay us service charges, when in fact, we would like to see the accounts in order for to get us opinion on what's being spent here.
Usually it's associated, of course, with children, vulnerable people, but it can also flag up issues of trust. So if somebody is being in trouble for fraud, theft, clearly that's not the sort of person you could trust to look after a kind of £600,000 turnover organisation. So it would help sort of strengthen that if we decided to go down that route. As I say, it's a suggestion. It's not on the table for voting on. Something perhaps bring up at a future meeting. And then FB says, what if a person is in debt because they dispute?
No, you're not looking at my questions. Look, Q&A. There they are. Nothing in mine is actually being stated. My questions, 26 all. Mine's not being carried in it. Fun enough.
You pay your service charge when it's due, typically at the start of the year. It doesn't give you an if, but, or maybe. It doesn't say, I pay your service charge, but not in these events. And we've got to run this company, both by Companies Act, by our Articles Association, and by the lease. And so it would actually be unlawful for us to qualify that term. And then something called meeting room. It really would help if people put their flat number at very least, and they don't want to put their name. Who is paying for these checks? I must admit, I have to ask, I don't know what the cost.
There is an option of putting in an anonymous response, so don't tell people off for saying they need to put
around £70. But for the peace of mind, it would pass to members that you don't have directors who are in hock to something, or have been found guilty of some sort of misconduct. I think it's a very small price to pay to make sure we don't have the wrong people managing our affairs. Okay, I don't know how we're doing for time. I'm just trying to see if there's any point.
Yes, I would like to vote against. Let's talk about a vote against this.
I think it's made that the new directors should be voted on by members, but weren't a number of new directors added to the board a few weeks ago.
So you're excluding me from the comments here, clearly. So you knew full well what you're trying to do here, and it's illegal. Because the guys can see that my comments and questions are not being carried onto their screen. So this is a complete farce.
And that's the annual general meeting in June.
It's very unfair. I don't have a voice.
Directors who who then were validated for election.
This cannot be legally upheld.
And then Christian.
You are not including my
and then
comment.
okay, are all the new directors owners that went away. So the way in which the articles work is that a leaseholder can essentially resign their membership and get another person, whether they live on the estate or not, to represent them as a member.
This is grossly unfair.
It's really handy in some circumstances. So you may have people who struggle to make meetings, or they may have a health issue, or just wish to get somebody.
That's amusing, because you said that Nash Patel, who owns with his family 11 properties, he was not permitted to be a director. Very interesting comment. So it's fine for your director to be in there, but it's not fine for us.
And then somebody,
that's fine.
Did they volunteer, or did the board panic and get them on board? Why is Simon Hurst back on the board? No, we didn't press gang them. They were interested, as you've heard from them. I'm sure they didn't look like people who've been forced to come onto the board. I don't know if meeting room, whoever you are, you were at the previous two AGM general meetings, but I stressed, in fact, I begged for new members to join the board. It requires a better balance. More people who live on the estate need to be on the board. And of course, new perspectives and new ideas, and that's what we have achieved. And Simon brings a great expertise in finance and accounting.
And cooking up the books for reducing his parking charges. That's quite amusing.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. I'm trying to get to yours as quickly as I can. So I'm trying to spill a few plates at the same time. So where I can, I will answer you, Mike.
And
so why are my questions being removed?
So first, Nash Patel obviously isn't on our land registry or on our members, and we've received no notification from anybody as such. There's a formal process to go through in which you can't just do it verbally. The leaseholder writes, formally resigns their membership and appoints a person to represent them. And that hasn't been done in this case.
That's nonsense. You know full well that's just you cooking up things.
Okay, thanks very much. So if I just, while Andrew gets us on the analysis of electronic voting, so what's going to happen is those who can vote, i.e. those who haven't already done their form and proxy, will vote on each one. We'll then have, I believe, a little break, Andrew.
Yeah, just while we count things.
And the reason for that is people who have voted twice, they need to be removed. People who are not areas, they have to be removed, and that has to be done manually.
Oh, that's very interesting, isn't it?
So, for example, I know that there are people here who have messaged. I sent in a proxy form, but if it was counted as invalid for whatever reason, on it or previously placed or whatever, vote if you think the proxy form was rendered invalid, because the team will be able to identify if there is a duplicate. And
right, why?
I think you sent me, Andrew. If people do vote twice, we would take the original vote as the one that's counted.
Yes, correct. Okay, you're sending the link now. And you've got 5 minutes from now to undertake your voting, and then there'll be a short time period.
Why is Nash Patel being removed from the meeting? This is an outrage. Cheney's, do not use them where, if you're based in the Thames Valley area, do not use Cheney's charter surveyors, because they are shocking treatment.
.co.uk/vote.
Andrew, can you hear me?
Yep.
Do you want to set the time, and then if people want to go off and get a cup of tea or something?
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Let's do 7:25.
I would go a little longer, if that's okay. Shall we come back at 7:30?
Understood.
Yeah, okay.
Right, I filled in the forms originally, so I'm just doing randomly some of the numbers of the properties I've got here. Given the gross unfairness here, I'm going to be taking a break of 8 minutes, and I will see you back later. Albert, please come back and join again. I will hopefully set it up for you. If he's also got YouTube, it is on live as well, but on another. Hi there, just thought I'd give a quick catch-up call for everyone before we go back at 5:30. The questions that I'm putting on are not going onto your screen, so all my objections and I'd like to talk are just being removed. So you're not seeing them, is that right? No. I can see yours, I can see everyone else's, but you can't see mine. I've got it all videoed, it's all on Winterful Way owners, which I've saved. I'm going to do another. I'm not responding to any messages on here because I'm using my phone for videoing it all, just to let everyone know. Yeah, I cannot see. I can see yours, I can see Anne's, I can see Jack's. You can't see mine. Yes, I know. It's just been. They look quite stressed. Yeah, they look very stressed out. But they get 74 votes. They must be smiling like a Cheshire cat, but they're not. Yeah, we don't need to do this electronic vote because we've already done it by forms. So there's no way. Yeah, I mean, for me not to be included in this Zoom thing, I don't know how they set it up, but it's very strange. No. Yeah, but on pause, we're coming back at past. He's basically removing all the duplicate votes from the forms. That's the form we just done. They kicked you out, my God. Well, but you know why? Because they just voted effectively to say that, Simon Hurst died. Yeah, Simon Hurst has actually been. Yeah, stop. Simon Hurst has been on there 4 times. He say they've been on there 4 times. It's an absolute farce. I've never seen anything so cooked up. Yes. But they've been treated as valid. They had one, and they treated it. I had 2, and they had one. One was valid, one was invalid. So I think it was Nick, possibly. I don't know whether you're there, Nick, but whether they're counting that or not. And they're probably counting yours. I think 2 people I know who've offered. I think. Yeah, whatever I told you is. But after this vote, they're possibly going to discount it on the basis of they've already discounted if you don't pay up. But that's what it says to email for that, but it doesn't seem that they're not following that. I think Sarah Larson sent it wrong. So basically, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Right. You think she's being clever? I mean, clever and discounting it. Anyway, we've got another 3 minutes. I've never seen something quite so congealed. It is unbelievable, and of course, getting it through to the 74 is going to be the impossible task. Because they've been told that we're the people that kind of they probably use my email that I used in June to say, look guys, you've got a lot of spending going on, which is not going to be seen to be valid. Do you want to let's talk about things. They've said that they need to talk. They think that we're being threatening initially, but the members are just being given a complete cooked up story. It's dreadful. We've got too much effort to do that. I mean, it is. They've cooked up the whole thing. Oh, yeah, they're not going to count your vote. It's very unfair. I don't think anyone's taken that part to being fairness, but yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. Yeah, I mean, if you look on owners later on, you'll see that my screen shows my questions and doesn't have them on your screen. That's got to be taken as being unfair. There's no way that this would be seen as being a valid thing if we were to take it past anyone.
Yeah. We shall see.
I'd be interested to know whether they've actually got everyone on mute. Yeah. Well, we know where nothing's going to be won here because they've no way. But all we're doing is getting evidence right now. Yeah.
And where have all these extra people on the board come from?
Yeah, no, it's something that they said that the members, vote for directors, but then only yesterday they voted for everyone. It is so comical. It's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, it would be comical if it wasn't somebody else's position.
Take a phone call, sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to jump back on now. Okay. See you. Let's speak later. Right. Right. We have 1 minute to go. Anyone who's watching live on YouTube, this is a scenario that some property investors will probably rarely get to this extreme. Essentially, when you have 17 properties in a block, you normally would have, with collection of 83 people, the leaseholders, we would normally be able to vote out the company. They cook up a load of stories connected with that we're going to suddenly take over and ransack the company, or effectively cook up a load of lies. And then, of course, the members in those packs would believe that. And then you have a situation of we're then looking like we're the bad guys. So we're not going to so they get 74 votes voting in their favour with the people, no doubt, in the meeting, some of which may be seeing this. I'm not able to actually actively vote on things.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're just in the process of reviewing the results of that, and I'll be with you just shortly.
Okay, so Andrew just came on 31 minutes past to say that we're just reviewing the votes. Look at the, I don't know if you can see on the screen on here that to me, to panelists, you are not including all my comments, and this is grossly unfair. And unfortunately, nothing is actually being done. There we go.
Just stop to submissions. If you submit after
they do not, you cannot answer, get my questions. I want to vote against this. And unfortunately, nobody's listening. So unfortunately, I can't see the, you can't see the screen so well. Apologise for the lack of quality on this. I'm using the screen on here, and I probably could do something more clever if I was clever at these things. Yeah, it's a rather dull for certain people, but this is just a quick way to record what's going on. It's invariably going to have to be taken to some other legal process. Just to give you some guidance, I've been stating this is all my questions are not being answered, and it's sorry, I'm going to try and make sure we still get this live working. Here we go, and here's our allegedly chairperson who's voted off by 83 people at last meeting, and he's choosing to continue.
Thank you for your patience there. I'm just going to read out the results, and then Matt as chair will declare the result formally. Okay, for the first resolution, when in arrears unable to petition for an EGM, we have 83% for, 17 against, so the resolution is passed.
However, you've not given 21 days, and therefore it's not valid.
Apologies, yes, certified.
Second, when in arrears unable to actively participate in the general meeting, 79% for, 21% against, so the resolution is passed.
Yeah, certified also.
When in arrears unable to stand to be co-opted as a director, 88% for, 12% against, the resolution is passed.
Certified.
When in arrears unable to hold or cast a proxy vote at a general meeting, 83% for, 17% against, resolution is passed.
Certified.
Directors in arrears are temporarily suspended, 91% for, 9% against, resolution passed.
Certified also.
Unfortunately, you don't have 21 days notice, and you've not given
93% for, 7% against, resolution passed.
Certified.
And directors required background checks prior to appointment, 93% for, 7% against, resolutions passed.
Certified, thank you.
We will addend to the minutes of the meeting the results of the voting for those asking for details of how it's been arrived at.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks everybody for participating. We're ready to go into the next item.
Yep, give me 1 second.
Okay, so
sorry, Matt, I'll speak first if I could. So on to second round, which is 7 in your pack. Colin Davidson as proposer. For each of the nominees, he has 3 minutes to state the case. Directors have opted not to make a statement against nominations as they feel this has been covered in the abundance of communication to members. There is a Q&A, which you can put some questions to, and I have 2 or 3 questions and 1 statement to read. which I'll do at the appropriate time.
Andrew, can I just clarify something? So the members by a fairly substantial margin have claimed which will make a director make a candidate who is in arrears or owes money to the company ineligible to stand for election. Now, what I'm aware of is that does impact on two of the candidates. Is that correct, Andrew?
Correct, yes.
However, the board has taken the view in the case of fairness and transparency that those candidates were put forward before the change of the rules, and therefore the board feels they should be eligible for election, but if they are successful, they will only be able to take up their fee subject to resolving any outstanding monies and, of course, passing the FCA check, which members have backed. So the way in which it will work is each of the directors will have a 3 minutes, followed by 3 minutes of questions, then the second, then the third, and then a bit like the last round, you'll vote for all three individually, but in one voting round. I hope that makes sense. And the message says, Raphael Martins, I stepped down to be a director a long time ago, and my name's still present. Okay, we weren't aware of that. So
yes, you were. You've chosen not to.
Him. Okay, so we have two candidates. So Andrew, I'll hand over to you to kind of unmute, etc.
Thank you. Okay, so Colin, you I've clicked here to allow you to talk, and you have 3 minutes to state your case.
There, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I've sorry, let me just go and exit full screen. Right. So, sorry, I was told that the audit would be carried out first, so I can actually talk about the fairness position first, because that's the order you gave it to me. What I'll be speaking on when you sent me an email on Friday.
Colin, we're doing as per the agenda. So if you want to talk, you've got 2.5 minutes to talk on you being elected as a director. Okay. I work as a chartered accountant, as many people will know. So I work in members' interests. I'm focusing on areas of my expertise in accounts and finances. I would never put my reputation and therefore my livelihood at risk by taking any action that did not conform with the law and accounting practices. If there's any belief of any kind of misconduct, unlike the existing directors and agents, I am part of any professional body who would listen to any complaint and would be imposing a fine for anything which wasn't deemed to be correct. It's actually the basis why I've previously requested members to be informed of issues in the past when I've been a director, and I know that hasn't gone down very well with other directors that needed to voice their concern. So I've had not, and I will potentially be liable for some wrongdoing. Majority that's been created is a complete sham in this meeting. I've been trying to say comments. I've been trying to object to things in the past, in the last half an hour, and all my messages are not being recorded. So this meeting would not be seen to be valid. So I'm very in favour of having a form of review. It doesn't have to be an informal audit, but I have a right to see the accounts and I have a right to inspect the records, and my appointment will be based on that members will be aware of any wrongdoing that I see in those accounts being made aware to them. And my appointment is also on the back of the requirement for a removal of the directors, the three that have been mentioned. It's an important reason to these directors should be removed and new ones should be appointed for transparent financial records, which we've tried to get hold of and have been blocked access to. So there's a current director that has a conflict with the board, recording the board minutes, sorry,
that should not be permitted. So we should not have directors that have not reported their conflict of interest to the AGM and in board minutes each time. We should not have.
Thank you. That's 3 minutes. I've got some questions to put to you from members, and then one statement to read as well, which is generally, which I think I'll do that last actually after Anne's spoken. One of the questions is McCarthy. Mr. Davison, in June 2020, you wrote to me proposing the following: I could avoid the lengthy legal matters and expenses if we come to the basis of getting a compromise on the service charge debt. Why do you feel that you should have a compromise over the service charge debt you had in June 2020? And why do you feel the need to threaten me with legal expenses unless that compromise was made?
So it was not a legal threat. I do not want to incur £100 and £200 legal charges to the Land Property Chamber, because there are a number of service charges which we now know and matters reported to the members that are not essential payments. So we have paid for a massive security upgrade, which I did not vote for and has not been part of a Section 20 notice, which for people that are listening to this is an authority for members to actually take a decision on their costs. So yes, I was looking to try to save those costs, because why would I want to incur charges connected with the company, which is something I've got to pay for again? So that is the reason why that was stated, because and I wasn't expecting, I was expecting a fair meeting to discuss those. Instead, I get £3,000 of charges being levied, which is, we could have been saved by communicating, couldn't it? So isn't it in the members' interest to have a settlement connected rather than incurring legal costs? We've spent £60,000 as members over the last 10 years for those treatments.
You're moving away from the answer to the question.
I'm trying to avoid legal costs is the short answer.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Another question from Simon Hurst. Please can you state the total balance you owe for service charges and other amounts due under the lease at the 31st of December and at today's date?
Today's date is 0. And as you know, I've been asking for accounts which are certified, and I've been asking from June. And reason why you've got the members on side is you reported this issue when everybody I have informed should be questioning the figures if they do not get accounts and access to see financial records. It's our rights. I've never ever underpaid, apart from various disputes which you've added to my bills that you've not added to other people's bills. So £120 I get charged for a water admin fee. I get £120 for a consent to let fee, which Duncan Foster himself.
I'm sure where you've gone, Colin.
I'm still here.
I ask you to unmute.
I'm still here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Can you hear me, Colin?
I can hear you, yes.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Sorry, just for clarity, the answer given on arrears, is that correct?
As far as I'm aware, that is not correct.
Thanks.
And Colin, I've clicked to ask you to unmute, but I can't hear you.
I can't see any unmute button. There is no unmute button here. I can hear you, and I can't see an unmute button.
Okay, Colin, can you try again?
Right, I came up now this time.
Okay, so Colin, I have another question for you.
Sorry, for clarity, I paid off the amounts that the claims had made, and I was not going to be paying for additional court fees and that, because let's face it, you could have talked to me and we could have got to the numbers and you wouldn't have to taken things to court. I would have convinced a lot more people to pay if we had access to the financial data. This is an absolute scam.
Thank you, Colin. The next question was from Jazz. Judge Palmer, forgive me. How would you sue members who are in arrears? How does telling members they should not pay their service charge help the company pay its bills?
Again, this is where you're getting 74 people on your side. Yeah, you know full well, if I receive the financial data and I'm comfortable with it, and you would provide accounts that have been certified with access to financial records, people would not have a problem. They do not have a problem with the accounts per se, but they don't have access to them. And they don't have access to financial data. So absolutely, I will be endorsing everyone to pay if there is nothing that is excessive. But we all know that spending 788,000 over 6 years, even your chairperson reports in an emails that are excessive. So we all know it's excessive. We're not paying excessive charges. That is not what we want as members.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you for that.
Let's just go to the Q&A to see if there's any other questions for Colin. Okay. I'm probably, for the sake of the people who put some of these messages here, not going to state their name. How does calling an illegal company meeting and pretending to be company director help our company? Colin, you should be able to talk now.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you now. Did you hear the question, Colin?
Why am I not seeing the questions on the question and answer section? Why are you not seeing the questions that I'm also recording and no other member in this meeting can see them? That is grossly unfair.
Colin, as we experienced in the previous meeting, it's extraordinarily difficult to keep up with the chat. Hence, we've moved the questions to the questions and answers. Doing our best to go through them. If I go through the questions that we've had.
Andrew, you've got questions I've raised in this meeting and you have not included them.
Yeah, so some of the questions that you've asked will be answered during the Q&A.
Can I just say, Colin, can you just please answer the question?
No, I wanted to object to the points raised earlier and that I put that into the chat area and you have ignored it.
Colin, we've explained.
No, that is not fair.
Please stop interrupting. Just be courteous. Lots of questions in the Q&A. They will all be answered if offline if necessary. Now, leaseholders asked a question to you pertaining to your election. Are you going to answer it or do you not want to answer it?
I would like to answer it, but if you answer my questions.
No. The question is to you, the candidate.
Yeah.
Are you going to answer it or not? We need to move on.
The points you mentioned earlier about removing of a director, I wanted to vote to talk about against it, and you've ignored me.
Okay.
So what? So the legal director.
I think we're going to have to move on. I apologise to everybody. The way this Discord works is that people need to be courteous and answer the questions that are put.
No, the Discord is that you've ignored my questions.
We have a section at the end of the meeting to go through the Q&A, at which point we'll cover as many of those as we can in the times that we have.
No, they need to be point at the point in the meeting.
Go on to McCabe.
Okay, Anne, you should be able to talk now. You have 3 minutes starting now.
Can I go on video as well?
I don't know how to turn that on, I'll be completely honest.
Okay, not to worry. I'm sorry you can't see me, guys. I'm really not a scary person. I'm not rude. I've got 3 minutes. I'm going to zip through this. Please ask me any questions you want. So I'm Anne McCabe. I'm standing as a director today. I've got 15 years experience in property management. In 20 years, I worked at Mars Confectionery, travelling the globe, which is good and bad. I worked in buying, IT, HR, production, and I'm a graduate of the Institute of Purchase and Supply. So I hope that reassures you and know what I'm talking about. So why are we here tonight? At the November AGM, a number of questions about accounts, insurance, reserves, and owner involvement decisions were ignored, or the answers were weak or simply postponed. After the meeting, a small number of us gathered to share concerns, and the process of holding the EGM commenced. These are the key concerns raised that I would plan to address as a priority. There are no finalised accounts for 2018 and 2019. This contravenes the company articles, the law, and the rules of the regulatory bodies Cheney belongs to. 2020 accounts are due in June and must be on time. The recently published reserves information is incomplete and supporting information is very weak. The resolutions tonight show a will to further exclude owners, not actively include us in decisions which we pay for. Further steps I would push for if elected. The company articles approved by owners in 2012 have been replaced at some point without a vote. This has removed or reduced the votes of some owners. The new articles must be communicated and voted on. Owners' funds are held in Cheney's bank account, our biggest supplier. A similar situation I'm impacted by in Southampton is believed to have led to the theft of over £100,000 of owners' money. Suppliers should not be in this position. The money should be in VHMC account and it should be managed by owner directors. Other concerns and questions that I would address. Votes should be counted by an independent person or group, not candidates, so not me, not directors, and not Cheney. We are all interested parties. Questions raised to the directors and Cheney should normally be answered within 7 days. I have questions going back to 6 months which are still being ignored. Spending money on expensive solicitors must stop. Current estimate, as Colin said, is £60,000. That £60,000 of your money is not Matt Garvey's, it's not Andrew Copley's, it's not any of the other directors. It is yours and ours. £60,000. Just think what that could have been used for at Winchester Way. The 4 new directors added to the board should put themselves forward to be voted on. Absolutely, we have had to be voted on. They should too. Creating the overwhelming balance in Matt Garvey's favour is transparent and embarrassing. I'm sorry, I did not mean to be rude or personal. I take that back. We are not a rude or personal group, unlike what you have seen tonight. Individual directors and or Cheney's employees must stop sharing anonymous, inflammatory comments and images online without any.
And that's 3 minutes. Thank you.
I've got 30 seconds.
Andrew, before we go to questions, I am compelled to correct some facts. We have not spent £60,000 on a legal fee. I don't know where that has come from. Legal fees generally are expended to do with the fiduciary responsibilities of the directors and certifying certain things to the company. That's scaremongering. It's outrageous. The articles uploaded in 2012 were by 2 legal firms certified as invalid. They had to come down. They were never valid. The original articles were restated and were contiguous. There is no requirement to vote on those articles because they were always in effect. And I find it actually very disappointing to have somebody say, talk about responsible financial conduct when they have sent a letter encouraging people to withhold their service charges and breach the lease. So I feel very strongly about that. I think the members should not listen to things which I think are very misleading, very wrong indeed. Andrew, please, can you conduct the Q&A?
Yes, thank you. So questions that I've got so far is do your recent circulars to members comply with GDPR? You should be able to unmute yourself, Anne.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, they do. We are members of the HMC. As such, we come under the GDPR rules of the HMC. Cheneys are obliged by law to provide all members, not just us, all of you as well, with the contact details for all of the members, so that when a situation like this happens, you are able to contact them without going via the directors.
Okay, thank you, Anne. And just to clarify, that's home addresses only, no emails or telephone numbers. There's a question: how do you feel about pretending to be a company director? How does that help the situation? You've incurred extra additional charges and legal fees because of this.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if you understood. So we seriously, I know these guys are telling you that you broke the law. We didn't. What we're doing is asking very unscary questions for us, like, why haven't you published the accounts? They are consistently accusing us of breaking the law. And every time I'm here, we say something they don't want you to hear, they mute us.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I don't think that's the case. I'm trying to keep to a time limit. So
Andrew, you allowed that garbage to speak for a good 15 minutes, insulting and being unprofessional, and you cut me off in the last 30 seconds. Not acceptable, not professional. Okay. You are all breaking the law. You are not publishing the accounts. You are not answering questions. And I'm sorry to sound angry, guys, but this is the truth. This is speaking truth to power. And they've got the power because they've got 9/10 of the law. They've got the second. You know what we're talking about. We know you've been taken as, I'm sorry, but you've been taken as fools and we're being lied about.
We're just going to set the room up, so just give us a couple minutes here and we'll start at the top of the hour. And thank you for joining us.
Okay, there's a question that says it's clear that there is a lot of tension between yourself and the other directors. Please can you reassure us with regards to how we'd be able to work with the existing directors in a way that will get results you aim to achieve?
Absolutely. If, and it looks extremely unlikely that I will be based on board because of, sadly, the lies that have been spread about me, I would work with them. Yes, there's a lot of persuasion. There's a lot they've done that I can't agree with. Having worked in business for such a long time, I cannot agree with their approach. It feels dishonest. However, these things have to be faced into. Like Jackie Weaver in Handforth, you have to get in there and sort it out. Sometimes you have to get your boots dirty and say things that people don't want to hear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a statement to read, which I will just find now. Just pause with me a second.
Okay, prepared for something quite damaging.
We are recording this, by the way, just so everybody's aware. So please be careful about any defamatory comments you make.
Okay. This is a statement I've been asked to read by Vernon Needham, who's a leaseholder. My wife and I bought one flat from Rialto off plan, with the degree of naivety. Our flat has been consistently let with long tenancies. We have had this sole rental property which supplements our pension. With clear memory of extremely disrupted period and extremely unsatisfactory BHMC meetings in 2012 to 2014, we have become increasingly concerned over the past few months. We have no conflicts of interest and have not had communication regarding current matters with any present or past directors except by circular. This is a time for very cool heads. We all know the current threats, one of which is the cladding issue. BHMC serves the interest of tenants, leaseholders and occupiers and landlords. At first sight, this appears a challenge, but I would suggest these interests are very much aligned. If the estate and units are well maintained, it's a pleasanter environment in which to live. Tenancies will be longer and capital values will secure. Win, win, win. To script on maintenance in the short term is ultimately a false economy. It is clear interdependency. There is a clear interdependency. Non-payers or late payers of service charge are being subsidised by the payers. Late or non-payment of charges inevitably leads to charges being higher for all, both because of the cost being borne by the smaller number in short-term administrative and possibly legal costs in chasing payments. I have read all the circular correspondence over the past few weeks, and I'll make the following points. It is abundantly clear that some of the issues relate to long-standing personal antagonisms, some intemperate and passionate behaviour being exhibited. Public airing of some personal accusations serves no constructive purpose and causes distress. it also undermines the credibility of the author. It is possible that some communications from BHMC and Cheney's could have been clearer or more thorough. I noticed that this message has been taken on board and there is a clear intention to improve. I read the 22nd of the 2nd, 21 EGM agenda, and it hadn't occurred to me that anyone could be so utterly disrespectful of their fellow members as to seek BHC office while outstanding with their own service charges. The crucial point in the statement in the TED partnership letter to leaseholders.
How do they know about that? Because it was defamatory and you sent it out.
Our client's memorandum and articles clearly stipulates that all members shall have only one vote. Colin Davis and the colleagues' actions appear to be predicated by the assertion that Colin has 17 votes, in contravention of the above, of which they must previously have been aware. Colin justifies his stats by quoting case law in his letter of the 12th of the 2nd, 21. This has not, to my knowledge, been tested against the current BHMC articles. The letter from Martin Edge of the 22nd of the 1st 21 was extremely clear and thorough in its explanations, the graph of the service charges being particularly instructive. Correspondence from Colin Davis and et al. Appears to be focused primarily on their perceived interests of leaseholders rather than the broader Victory Hill community. And McCabe, in her letters of the 1st 21 states, how can you help improvements? Withhold your service charge payment. We appreciate this may not be for everyone. This appears to be a clear invitation to breach obligations. If Anne McCabe were a current director of the HMC, I wonder what her or Colin Davison's response would be to a third-party correspondence which effectively promotes anarchy, undermining any attempts to pursue the interests of leaseholders and residents. For the sake of transparency, a concept which Colin et al. Espouse, it would be helpful for them to all clearly state their own positions in respect of any outstanding service charge debt. In Colin Davison's letter of the 12th of the 2nd, 21, is headlined "The Value of Your Property at Risk." Irrespective of the merits of his complaints, it would appear that his and his colleagues' behaviour is currently the greatest threat to property values at Victory Hill. I look forward to return to stability and mutual respect. The statement ends.
Andrew, thank you. I think we need to move to the voting section so that can be processed.
Okay.
It's not voting and voting when you've got 74 votes on your side, is it? But we've got 83 that were voting for us originally, before any defamatory comments were made.
Okay, I'll paste the link in the chat now. Remember that Raphael has withdrawn his application to be a director. If anyone has issue with accessing the form, please let me know. We will aim to come back to you in 10 minutes' time, so 8:15.
Again, well done. That was a very big production, but unfortunately, it's not going to win. It was, yeah. We know for a while since we saw the first votes that it's not going to go anywhere. Essentially, last night. Say again, Des? Vernon, yeah, Vernon. Vernon. Is the first name, I can't remember the surname is. Yeah. Interested to know why they haven't got any others. So, no, he didn't say how many votes. So I think he's 74. They've got 10 of the board, which are presumably, we're not sure if they're counting at 74, but it can get to 84. And I don't know how many people are actually meeting, because we know how actually seeing it. I believe that the registration stage was about 15, so I think there's probably around 25 people in the room. Okay, the 110 would then be the actual total votes, including 74. They weren't. Yeah, I would think that it was using 110 votes, which would be the 112 the amount we had previously in 2012 as the maximum. So that and 70% or also 83%. Same number as what I got. They always vote in favour of the materials that are being sent out. Exactly in our case in January, of course, it was 99, it was 100%. So once you control the material, you control the vote. Because you can position if you like how you want to say it. The only thing which is going against us is it's not payments, and that's recommendations not paid. That's the only thing, unfortunately, that's yeah. I guess it's the only thing they don't. But my point to say, look, let's talk about it, let's not go to court and fees. They're probably using that to sort of think that's something that wipe out the debt or something. That's what they're using it for. And no, it's safe. I think you've done the same thing as me then. They've put me in a room. No, so they basically put us in breakout rooms. I saw your questions. So yeah, basically they put us both Anna and myself in rooms. Yeah. So there's I can see yours, which is yeah. Yeah, they're doing it. They palmed you off. They put you in a room. This is hilarious. It's not a really valid room.
Okay, it looks like most of you are getting used to this system and voting quickly. Thank you. We'll try and cut the next voting periods down to 5 minutes. Back with you in about 5 6 minutes.
I think it's just telling you, yeah, fine. I don't think it's taking much of this count, please. I'm prepared for over the 80 mark. I think it's going to be still percentage wise as well. Well, they don't tell us what, do they? We're not denying that they've been advised that we can't tell what. They're not giving us what. What is basically what is the why? Why are these not valid? They're not telling us. So give us some credibility. We give it credibility. Just tell us the why. It's just they don't, because then there'll be something to hang up against.
So time for questions.
I'm wondering if Andrew's popping in our rooms and can listen to us. Yeah, we do try that. There's breakout rooms that you put it into, but I didn't know that in the breakout room you can actually still listen to the main production. Look. Very nice. Yeah.
While we're voting, I'm going to pose a question in the chat box. Please identify yourself. I think if hiding behind something else is probably not in the case of transparency. And give other people a chance to put something in. There's a lot of, an awful lot of one-line statements rather than questions coming through in the Q&A, which makes it very difficult to provide equitable attention to everyone who wants to submit a genuine question. My colleague, Martin Edge, who you've heard from already, has asked to respond to a particular question, which is from somebody called Meeting Room. I don't know who it is. So whilst the votes are being, once the votes have been counted and the results given, I'm going to allow Martin to...
So, all questions here.
Respond to it.
One vote per member.
Matt, did you say whilst or after? In other words, now?
I think once voting has finished, people may be considering their vote.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, thank you for your votes. Okay, same as before, Matt?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so to the appointment of Colin Davison as director, 56% participation of eligible members. The motion for 14%, motion against 86%. The resolution is rejected.
That's it.
We are skipping over Raphael's. The appointment of Anne McCabe as a director, again 56% of valid members taking part, 23% for, 77% against.
That's it.
Thank you.
So Andrew, a question that's been put in Q&A, Martin is asked to address it now. I think, given the nature of it, that would be fair. Martin, if you can keep it as brief as possible, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. The question that has been posed, and it has been posed before, the question reads, can you explain the £34,000 insurance claim re Martin Edge's flat? So I will answer. At the outset, I'll say that the question demonstrates ignorance of the case by the person who's asked the question.
Well, the problem is you don't provide us the accounts or the records to see the facts.
The case involves water penetration through the roof and the rain-screen cladding on Elm Block, with subsequent water penetration into apartments 366 and 367. And this water penetration was first noticed in the spring of 2005, which basically means from the beginning of the life of the flat. It was reported to Alan Foster Associates. They inspected it and advised to monitor it. The problem persisted in both apartments, but no action was taken for 5 years. It brings us to 2010. In both apartments, the ceiling board started to deteriorate and the balcony sill board swelled and started to warp. In one of the apartments, where the problem was more serious, wood strip flooring progressively shrank and distorted. So in 2011, Alan Foster made a preliminary investigation by cutting a hole in the ceiling of one of the apartments, and it appeared that the water was penetrating from above the apartment in the roof space via the external rain screen cladding. This case was then taken up with NHBC, whose certificate was still valid, training certificate was still valid. And NHBC, after surveying from the inside and reaching a conclusion, they reported as follows on the 20th of September 2011. Their letter said, it appears that the leak is due to a leak in the rain screen cladding, which is part of the external envelope of the building. It is therefore considered the leak relates to the common parts of the development for which each homeowner of the block has a legal obligation to share responsibility for maintenance and repair. For a claim to be valid, the cost must exceed the minimum claim value, which stands at £847. Bear in mind this was 2011. As there are 76 apartments in your block, the minimum claim value would be £64,372. We consider it is unlikely that repair of the rain screen cladding would exceed this amount, and this would normally therefore be a matter for the managing agent of the property to deal with. End of quote. Unfortunately, Alan Foster Associates ceased being our managing agent in 2012. Subsequent agents and VHMC were unwilling to address the issue, and it wasn't taken up again until Cheney's, working with our insurers, took up the case in 2018, where, on the insurer's advice, Cheney's put in place the search and find investigation in October 2018. They cut another hole in the ceiling of one of the apartments, which again was insufficient to identify the cause, and abseiling was considered to examine from the outside, but the geometry of the roof made that impossible. So the insurer approved the erection of a scaffold from ground to roof so that the expert surveyors could inspect from the outside. And in due course, they confirmed that the ceiling around the rain screen cladding above the apartments in the common area was defective. The insurer approved for a specialist contractor to be appointed to remedy the defect. And additionally, Cheney's, working with the insurer, organised remedial internal work to the two apartments, to ceilings, sills and floor coverings where they were damaged. And that work was completed in October 2019. So, in summary, what do we have? 3 points. Number one, the cause of the leak was because the rain screen cladding in the common area was defective. In fact, we could call it a construction defect. Secondly, NHBC rejected the claim because it was the value would be less than the combined excess. They ruled that each leaseholder of Elm had to share the cost of the repair, and it was a case for the managing agent to deal with. Thirdly, the remedial work was in any case necessary. Whether or not it is an insured risk is irrelevant to this case. If the insurer will accept the claim, the leaseholders of Elm will be relieved of the cost. If they decline, the cost falls to the 76 leaseholders. So in conclusion, it's not my apartment which has been repaired or renovated. It is a leak in the roof structure of Elm Block. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Martin.
So why didn't you ask that when we asked it at the time? Doesn't quite make sense.
On to round 3, which is resolution 8 in your agenda pack. Martin Edge will speak for 5 minutes in support, and we've had no members asked to speak against, so please put any questions in the Q&A.
Good, thank you. So you have my voice.
I would like to vote against.
Could you kindly put up the slide?
I would
of the reserve.
like to talk against.
This agenda item
Please.
is driven by two issues, two questions which have been raised by members.
Okay, this is going to be ignored.
I will summarise this. Number one, how is our reserve fund being managed? And secondly, is the balance of the reserve fund appropriate for purpose? Please look at this table. This is the summary of statistics at the end of last financial year, so December. Now, bear in mind, please, that each block is its own cost centre and it has its own reserve fund. If you start in the third column, you will
So where's
see
the car park on this then?
amounts standing in the reserve fund, the balances held for each block at the end of 2020. In total, £345,000. If we look at the annual spend, there was a detailed tabulation of this on the website, but column 4 shows the average annual spend over the last 6 years by block. If we divide one column by the other column, we can get an approximate indication of how many years of reserve we hold.
14 years for you, that's interesting. We should only be carrying 3.
Whole year, because this is only an approximate indicator. What we can see is that the estate appears to be running on empty. Birch is marginal, but generally the large block.
How about you going on 11 years, for goodness sake?
Around 3 years spend in balance, at around £50,000 plus or minus. The small blocks are showing between 7 and 14 years of reserve, which may sound very high, but in fact, if you look at in column 3, the actual value of the balances held are between £12,000 and £20,000.
Yeah, because you're spending well over what you need to achieve the spending, because small blocks have less wear and tear, but you're using the same method of replacement for the small blocks you are the large blocks. So you should have a different policy for the small blocks and the big blocks, and you wouldn't have a problem.
Planned expenditures are plotted from the rolling planned maintenance programme, which was originally drawn up by Cheney's and Thames Valley Consultants in 2015. Now, in 2016, the members' annual general meeting supported a proposal from the directors to increase the annual contribution to the reserve fund so that it would support the foreseen expenditures. And that's what we've done since 2016. And the final column shows what the contributions were in year 2020. Now, our challenge is the well-known health.
The only reason why you got so few years is because you've been high spending the last few years. So you're not really comparing like for like.
Is not the guide to the future. What about the unplanned expenditures? So earlier you heard me say that this
reserve should only accrue actual expenditure you're going to incur in the next 3 years. That's what these states.
For balcony decks, waking watch, as well as for the planned expenses of facade cleaning and pigeon defences. And these will easily exceed £100,000 for each block. So that, and if we allocate those to reserves and ask yourself, what other choice do we have? Then that will wipe
We've got to pay for it somehow. You can't just take it from reserves or that.
And it will still leave leaseholders to finance a deficit of around £700 each, which will have to be paid this year. So this is an exceptional scenario, I grant you, but it's real, and we have to deal with it, and it may happen again in the future. So our conclusion, the board's conclusion, is that our policy should be to manage the reserve account for each block in a way that is equitable for all leaseholders in the long term. In other words, everyone should contribute to the long-term costs of their building upkeep, not just those leaseholders who happen to be there today. If we hadn't built up those reserves in column 3, then we, the current leaseholders, would have to bear the 100% effect of this cladding and fire non-compliance scenario. So by taking a long-term view, 10 years rather than 3 years, of the planned maintenance, and by including provision for contingencies which we can't exactly foresee, we will be able to maintain a more healthy reserve fund and do our best to ensure that everyone pays their share. The question has been asked today, does this mean that we will have to pay more each year? So my answer is that the effect of this resolution of changing the planning horizon from 3 years to 10 years will not of itself cause necessarily any change to the existing annual contribution. I can, if anyone wants it, I can offer a copy of the financial model, the spreadsheet model I did, and for a given forecast of planned maintenance and provision for contingency, I can get approximately the same average annual contribution for 3 years and 10 years. But the difference is that in the 3-year model, it will vary. So to take the example, in the final column, if you look at the large blocks, let's say the average contribution is £300 per year, then in the 3-year model, it could be £150 one year and £500 the next year.
And that's what the lease states. So we need to know what we're covering.
Much smoother pitching of the contribution. So in conclusion, I think this puts the case. Happy to take questions, but please vote for this resolution. It will help us.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for that. Andrew, has anybody asked to give a counter argument to this?
Not prior to the meeting formally, no. So those who have asked are doing so by the question and answers, which I'll go through now.
Okay, thanks very much.
Jack Bloy asked, will this increase our service charges? Just need
so they're asking questions right now and they're able to then get an answer, but my questions are not being given because this person today right now is allowed to ask a question, but I'm not. That's unfair.
In itself, no, it will not.
And apologies who that question was, because I didn't get it properly down, but this is a shambles.
Somebody asked, why are directors doing financial models? Are they qualified accountants?
I'll try to give an upbeat answer. It's a simple spreadsheet forecasting what we think we will spend each year, and then taking some calculations from it. Plenty of engineers do this for their whole life. I did.
Nick asks, please show the different models, 3-year versus 10-year, because I can't see how it won't increase the cost.
Okay, I'll have to follow up with this. I can't put that on the screen. Like I just can't.
We can follow up offline, irrespectively of the outcome.
Right. So why are they allowed to ask questions and I'm not? This is a sham. You cannot.
Says average cost must increase for the next 10 years. It's probably a statement more than anything else.
I don't know what's behind Mike's statement, but in a way I could agree with him, because as the estate ages, so the work needed to keep it in condition, of course, increases.
Okay, there's a question from meeting which I understand to be Des O'Neill. Why are you collecting reserves at the rate of, and then each block is quoted each of the rates? If you don't mind, Martin, I'll address this one. So, as you probably saw in my communication to you all on reserves, I mentioned that I did an analysis of sort of 10 or 15 of the most comparable blocks to yours that we look after, looking at their reserve funds. And reserve fund contributions averaged over those between 20 and 25%. Block B is at 20%, Block C is at 24.5%. These are the numbers that Des has quoted, forgive me, I have to verify them. Block D is 24.5%, E is 17, F is 27, W is 26, X is 42, Y is 39, Z is 78. Now, the larger blocks are within that mean range. With the smaller blocks, the reality
I can't
is
see these questions at all.
Properties to share the burden of the maintenance of those buildings. You know, Block X and Y have only got 4 apartments, yet they have a roof and walls and everything else. So that is why their levels are as high as they are.
No, I am.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? I see some others have popped in. There's one which was from somebody called FB. Were the new offices for trainee staff paid from reserves? Does that not affect on insurance policy, changing the estate into a commercial, not private residence?
I can't see that question, so it's been hidden to me.
Andrew, can you answer the question about the new office? Did that come from reserves?
Well, definitely.
Yeah, it was planned for and paid for through reserves.
So it wasn't authorised by members.
Extension, which we discussed at several.
It's not an extension; it's a new build.
Through communications, primarily because the office that we had was not fit for purpose. There are issues around statutory issues around toilets for ladies and gentlemen.
There's toilets there now in that building, and you've got an office space.
But also the changing needs of the estate in terms of its ageing, in terms of more repairs and maintenance, in terms
This is
of
nonsense.
more social issues, resident issues, inquiries, etc. Which is why the board last year made the change so that they would be more focused on the administration of the estate rather than.
Why don't they do that like other managers have done from their offices, not in our areas? So we'd rather have green areas without managers.
Inspected weekly, so the regime that Jeff undertook is done, but there is an expanded need for the administration on site. That is the reason why the office was extended.
Andrew, may I add to that? That it's correct. It's not a Cheney's office on site. It's a Victory Hill Management Company office for our own directly employed staff, as well as the agent.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that assessments of our previous facilities didn't comply with necessary regulations and exposed us as an employer.
Nonsense! You've plenty of places only have one toilet.
So why they've not been filed.
And you've fitted.
Going to come to that in the sort of broader Q&A. That's okay. Somebody has said no more increases to leaseholder contributions. Look like models are wrong or biased. Let accountants do their job. Well, we do have an accountant on the board, and we do have a company accountant. And I don't know why they'd be biased, because as directors, we have to pay the same service charge as everybody else. So this is, I think, an effort to present a way.
They're not though, are they? You're paying less.
Service charges don't yo-yo around each year, but it gives us all a little bit of surety about what service charge will look like from year to year. Would that be accurate, Martin?
I think so.
Right. Have we got time for any more questions, or do we need to go to a vote?
Time to vote.
Thanks very much. Okay.
We're going to keep this one shorter, so you've got 5 minutes to vote, and we're going to try and verify that as quickly as we can as well as we go through.
And a reminder, it's a special resolution for the threshold to pass is 75.
The link is in the chat now for you to click on, and we'll be back in 5 minutes' time. Thank you.
While people are voting, we have actually surpassed the allocated time for this meeting. So what we're going to do is, rather than automatically adjourn, Andrew is going to put a quick yes/no vote up to the question: do members wish to extend the length of this general meeting? And we'll say initially we'll extend it to by half an hour.
Again, just a quick one this time. Yeah, I'm not getting what Anne's saying and what you're not getting what I'm saying. So it's I reckon they're going to probably get this one as well on 75%, but it's a question of how they're going to actually enforce it. Yeah, you can basically copy it between rooms. You can actually allow it to go between rooms. Yeah, they're just being selected. Yeah.
Okay, while some of you are voting on that, I'm just going to post in the chat the vote on adjourning the meeting.
Yeah, it's 5 minutes. But... Well, they're getting 200. If they've got 200 votes, 56% of people voted out of the 200 and something. So they've got 220. No, 320. So they've got 160 votes. So it's never been such a big scale, which doesn't surprise me in the slightest, given that how they've done it by email. And we've got 14% was in our favour, so 14% of people out of the 200. So it's about we've got about 30 people. No, yeah, about 30 individuals. Of those 30 individuals, we probably therefore would represent about 120 votes if it was done under the proper method. And yeah, I'm going to use my camera, my phone, so won't be. Yeah, I'm going to finish this call, okay? Right, speak to you later, guys. Bye.
Okay, everyone, thank you. We're just going through and checking those now pretty shortly.
Okay, for anyone that's watching live on YouTube, this is exactly how to cook up a meeting. The main point is you send out via pack, via DocuSign rather, very defamatory comments to put your position across. If someone wishes to query the service charges, then you just simply tell them that they are looking to not pay them. And it's getting, we got from Matt something again. Not sure if this message is constructive, and you're getting personal, and please refrain. I'm serious. Please refrain from personal comments. Interesting. On the chat area there, articles uploaded were invalid. Well, they haven't told us why. £60,000 is totally ridiculous. Well, add up the last 10 years worth of legal fees and you get a figure of 60,000. I think I'll have to go and do that myself just to prove this point. And we're not sure why we've got that. We've got it's not going to be seen as fair if you cannot put a question in front of the people.
With you shortly, everyone, just tabulating these in our Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you're getting this way around. Apologies for
just a reminder, there's also a link to both for and adjournment, which would bring the meeting to a close now, to be rearranged in not less than 30 days' time. Or we could vote against that and we'll continue for half an hour and endeavour to complete the business on the agenda.
right. Got a hand raised there. And I've put a chat in here. Q&A, I'd like to talk and see what happens. Apologies, I just couldn't get my phone to rotate on this occasion. So if you're watching on Facebook Live under Winterful Way Owners, you are seeing a very cooked up meeting.
Had 49 responses so far, 50 responses so far, only 24% for adjourning. 76% against.
So are you saying it's mathematically impossible to overturn that?
It would be unlikely to overturn that as it stands, correct?
Okay. I think we need to wait until it is impossible to overturn it before we adjudicate.
Well, I can't see this question you're putting up. I cannot see the vote. Okay, just make sure it's all recorded. So he's basically he's put me in a room.
Sort out one of our Excel spreadsheets, just so that you're all clear on how it works. When you click on that link, fill in your answers, it populates a spreadsheet that we've set up some rules to check if you have already voted, if you're in arrears, if your vote is valid. There's a problem with that workbook. We're just changing the math so it works again, so that we can get the correct tabulation of those votes really shortly.
While we're collating the votes, the next item is upon the appointment of auditors. This was submitted as a proposal by Colin Denvison, and the board supported as well. If there is anybody who wishes to speak against it, statement read against it, please let us know now. Otherwise, as the board is in favour, if there are nobody against it, we'll allow a period of questions in case people want things clarified, and then we'll go to the vote.
Okay, on the adjournment voting, we now have 57 responses, which is only 24% for adjourning. So we'll stay on as we are, and it can't be overturned given the number of votes now.
Okay, so they've asked me to put a resolution forward, which I have done for the auditors, and then I will speak on it. And now they're removing my right to talk on this activity. So he's just missed a blurb to say that there's no objections against it, and therefore it will go straight to Q&A. However, I have not had an opportunity to actually do my talk.
As you can appreciate, it's not a simple thing for us to do.
I would like to put my
55% participation, 72%
talk
for, 28% against,
this.
and the resolution is rejected.
That's
Thank you. Okay, that's certified. Let us move to the next one.
It's not certified. You're just simply confirming it. You haven't seen what he's got in front of him, have you? So you're using that word certified in the wrong context there. So you've asked me to talk on this matter of audit. I'm the only working chartered accountant in this room of 200 odd members, 300, and you've not allowed me to talk.
Proposed by Colin Davison, and the board supports it. And information was provided in the EGM.
I didn't actually state the appointment of auditors. I said that there needs to be an audit in conjunction with the way you cost.
Or what's called a show of hands. Imagine in a room, you could do a show of hands. It's used where there isn't necessarily a conflict or disagreement about a resolution. So as this has been proposed and has been, the board is encouraging its adoption, what I'd like to see in the Q&A is if there's anybody who is against it, they can just say, I'm against it, I want to vote, and we'll go through to the...
So I'd like a poll on this, and I'd like to talk on it. As I carry more than one vote.
If there's nobody against it, then we can call it a show of hands, and we can just pass this resolution. So if anybody in particular says they want to vote or they're against it, if you've got that in the Q&A now, it only takes, I think, 2 people.
Right, I'd like to talk against this. Okay, so I don't care if I'm talking for or against. I want to talk on the subject.
It's a rough cost of the appointing the auditor. Andrew, from past experience.
So just so we're clear, the service charge accounts are audited. I will speak to.
They're not audited, they are certified, but we haven't got the providers.
Auditors, forgive me, a technical word which I probably shouldn't use because the accountants in the room will shout at me. But they are, the service charge accounts are done in accordance with the technical requirements that are required under the RSS service charge code and at the terms of the lease. I'll explain a bit later why there's a delay on 2019 accounts.
About 2018.
What's happening with the 2018 account shortly as well. But in effect, we already undertake that independent check.
So why are they not prepared? Why have we incurred all these legal fees and hold back on the payments? Because you've not done your obligation.
Accountants who undertake a review all of the expenditure. They go through the invoices, they go through the expenditure, they go through all leaseholders' statements and payments to make sure that everything is right and correct. They produce a set of questions to us, which we then answer, and they become finalised and signed off at that point. So in effect, we are ratifying something that we are already doing.
Well,
we speak on this at all, Andrew or Matt?
By all means.
To make a comment as from the accounts background, please do.
Yeah, no, that's a very clear statement by Andrew. There are no extra costs involved because this is already being done. But the board felt that just to keep rejection resolutions was unnecessary. This is done and will continue to be done using proper accountants, and I and Martin will continue to oversee this process as well as directors of the company.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we have had a request for a poll. So, but before we go to that, Paul C has asked, why is this necessary? Is there one of the directors who would like to phrase the response to that?
Yeah, it's not actually necessary. It's already being done. But as I explained, we don't want to keep being negative and rejecting resolutions. But by supporting this, it is actually to underline that this is a very important process which we, the board, support and will continue to support.
Okay, thank you very much. KV, yes, Mr. All accounts are already audited, question mark. Just no one understands where the money is going, poor reporting, question mark. Andrew, do you want to respond to that?
I think I'd like to cover it in my Q&A because I sort of I can explain it then. However, let me do it now so everybody's clear because we're voting on this particular matter. Shall I issue the vote details and then talk while that's happening then? Matt, are you happy with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm pasting into the chat now the link for voting on the service charge audit.
This is an ordinary resolution, so it's just over half votes of the council.
Okay, that's on its way. Okay, so what I'll do is to talk about what normally happens, and then I'll address what the issues we've had over 2018 and 19. So normally at year end and 1 month hence, as we have currently done, we put a pack together of the previous year's service charge accounts. So end of January, our accounts team go through, they certify everything, the property manager goes through and checks where allocations are, and then we hand over all the accounting information, all of the invoices, all of the payments information for each leaseholder over to the accountants. That's normally around mid-February at this point in the year. And normally within about a month, we get a first draft of the accounts from the accountants. That draft comes along with a number of queries which we answer and the team go through. It's passed back to them. The accounts are then finalised, and typically we issue them within 6 months of the year end. Now, on 2019, as you're aware, we delayed the issuing of 2019 accounts because of an insurance claim on Elm Block. We very much hoped that would resolve itself before, but it didn't. There were other slowdowns as well, COVID from the accountants on our side as well. But the principal issue is over the accounting for this insurance claim. The problem would be that if we certified the accounts at that point, it brought about around £500 liability per flat in E Block. So therefore, we chose to hold the finalisation of those accounts until we got a decision with the with the insurance ombudsman on the claim. That is still pending. However, the board met early in the year, and because of the concerns that some residents were leaseholders were raising about the service charge accounts, agreed to certify the accounts on the basis that for now that amount was met by reserves. That the finalisation of those accounts is in progress as expected this week. It's my fault it's not done, but to be frank, the priority, especially last week and the week before for me, was all the documentation that Homes England and MHCLG needed for the cladding. Prior to that, frankly, I was dealing with the issues that have arisen prior to this meeting. It's disappointing, and the directors are not happy with me that accounts are not here and ready for you to see. But the reality is at the moment that they're not ready. They should be ready by the end of this week, and they'll be distributed as soon as they are ready. Okay. With regards to the 2018 accounts, it appears that there were some issues with that, not material as far as I can see, and I'll issue the details of those with an explanatory letter this week as well.
Thanks, Andrew. The criticism over this is well founded. You know, the board agree that this should not have come to the current state. It isn't because of any comments that may have been made about some sort of conspiracy. It has come down to a lack of effectiveness in this area, and I've made it clear to Andrew that any fines due will be paid by Cheney's and will not be billed to members, and that this for 2020 cannot be repeated. So I'm going to say from the board, from your representatives, I'm really sorry this has happened. It is far from the standard we should aspire to. It is, as I say, a lack of certain skill. There is no sinister or duplicitous motives behind it whatsoever. And I'll give my pledge, if I'm still on the board, that the 2020 service charge accounts will be up as quickly as possible. Okay, what next, please, Andrew? Have we got time for a couple more questions on this topic?
Yeah, we're just in the middle of voting on the service charge auditing. But yeah, other questions while we're doing it? There isn't any.
Let's have a look in the box.
Just while you're looking, there's someone who's asked about registering to do the state aid declaration. We will be resending that to you. That's Mr. Buck.
Thanks very much. Most of the things are statements by one or two of the same people, so I'm trying to find. Richard Soper asked, when did we have a last market test for management services in the States? A really, really good question. At the middle of last year, the board began the process of going back out to tender, and then cladding landed on us. They put the board in a really difficult position because you can have changing management to struck us as asking for trouble. So I'll ask my colleagues when was the last time we went to tender, but the board's view is once cladding is kind of safely underway, it is time to retender for the managing agent contract. Martin, when did we last tender?
We tendered in 2014, and so Cheney's have been with us 6 years. Yeah, that's all I need to say.
Yeah, so
So I've said that. What about these legal charges they've charged against me, which were due to those accounts not being provided, and the board have just admitted that it's their responsibility for doing it.
Referring to, if you want to clarify that. A lot of these are statements rather than questions that I can see in the chat box. Ravi asks, how quickly may accounts of previous years be finalised? Will it only happen when the auditor is appointed? Andrew? How quickly are you looking to get?
2018 and 19 should be remembered by the end of the week.
And Richard Soper said, can we have a speech in favour? I mean, the board is in favour of it because it's belt and braces, I suppose. There are clearly some people who believe the scrutiny needs to be given. We believe it already is given, but this is a surety to those who are concerned about the way service charges are put together, that they are. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Simon, to it about why it's a good idea.
Look, you asked me, and I put the resolution forward, so I've got the right to talk on the activity. This is ridiculous.
It's best practice that's already in operation, and I think it's a bit slow. I'll be honest with you, had I been involved in the account, I used to prepare the service charge accounts back in 2014-15, and I worked with changes in the early days before I had to resign as a director. But I think that basically we are doing best practice in terms of auditing, but I do think we need to address these issues in a more timely way so we do get the accounts out. I don't want to be too critical, but given that these issues only affected one block, I'm still not aware why we didn't issue service charge accounts for all the other blocks. And I think this is something that we as a board need to address, and I hope that now I've come back on board, it's the sort of issues we can address and get the accounts out to the members on a much more timely basis, which I think is what they need and what they deserve.
Quite, and so therefore your point is absolutely valid. So you can understand why people don't pay when they don't get the accounts.
300% increase in repair and maintenance charges for almost all blocks. Any reason for that, Andrew?
Yep, you are just spending more because it's not essential.
Look at that individually to determine which blocks they're talking about. You know, as leaseholders are hopefully aware, each year we produce to the directors a draft of the budget for the next year coming, based on expenditure during that previous year, based on contracts which we know are due, repairs and maintenance which we know is due. What we can't account for is ad hoc things, obviously, but we try to budget as best as possible. When the accounts are finalised, if we have underspent for the year, leaseholders receive a credit back. If we've overspent for the year, leaseholders will be charged for the balance of that. So the money isn't kept anywhere else. If it's not spent, it's passed back to you. If it's not enough, then we have to ask more of you. That's the nature of how the service charge accounting works.
Okay, thanks so much. Sorry, it's quite tricky to keep up with the Q&A got lots of people have basically great long ones.
Okay, the voting's completed.
Thank you.
Okay, appointment of service charge auditor, participation 57% of qualified members to vote, 96% for, 4% against. The resolution's passed.
Thanks very much. Okay, let us move on to the next item, which is the.
Which I wanted to speak on that event, and I want to speak on that as well. Funny enough.
There's actually an error here, Andrew, in the slide. If you see the agenda,
I would like
a bit like the appointment of
to speak
there's 3 minutes for the individual directors to talk,
on this.
3 minutes for the Q&A. And the proposal is that the 3 mentioned should be removed.
Yeah, proposed, and I thought I have a right to talk on the subject.
And the board is encouraging against the removal of those.
Yeah, funny enough, you've got nobody speaking for the proposal.
So before,
not that it would make a big difference because you've got 74 votes already.
We'll go one at a time and then vote on this. Wayne, did you want to make any statement?
So I am very conscious of the time that we're already at, and we are kind of running rapidly over the schedule that we kind of agreed that we'd extend to. So we can keep it short and sweet, which is I have already circulated a statement that hopefully all members have had an opportunity to read. I'm more than happy to answer any questions if people choose to address them in the Q&A. Otherwise, I would urge us to move to the vote in order that we can conclude the meeting.
Well, because you know you're already going to be voted.
Thank you. Just before Des O'Neill said I didn't affirm the last result. Correct. Apologies. I didn't. So that result is affirmed, Andrew, for the minutes. Right. Okay. Somebody's asked to make a statement about this. There isn't the opportunity to make a statement, but there is an opportunity there to ask questions. So if you want to...
Funny that, isn't it?
Start it with Wayne. And then we can easily identify the first one. I don't think it's a question. Wayne, you haven't answered any of my questions. That was from Des O'Neill.
I would like to ask.
Any others? Questions for Wayne?
Yes, I would like to ask a question. Do you... No, funny enough, not coming through. Have
we'll move on, but if a question comes a bit later, people typing, we'll pick it up. Martin, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, Matt. Simply to say that I believe.
Do you have a conflict of interest in the company?
Says whether I'm suitable to be a director or not. I put a statement on the website under my bio, which gives you a view of what I have contributed to and what I have assisted to achieve in recent years. And I believe I still have a constructive contribution to make on the board. I'm not going to stay on the board forever, but I wouldn't like to be removed. But I understand that.
Why the insurance not come?
It will be the will of the members. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Martin. Okay, again, sort of similar. If you have a question, if you start it with Martin, and then we can pick it up.
Have you not?
Colin said I would like to ask a question. Yeah, go ahead. Type it. If you don't mind typing in. Wayne or Martin.
Yes, I can see the question from Colin. She's asking if I could declare if I have a conflict of interest, and I can declare I do not have a conflict of interest.
I don't think that was from Colin, just for the sake of that was from meeting room, which I think is Des O'Neill. Just wait. No, okay, well, it's going to be a question for me, which I will respond to once I've done my part. Okay, so it comes to me, you've probably heard quite enough from me, to be honest. For me, I can't leave a job undone. It goes against my DNA, and cladding is such an existential threat for so many of us. I feel I need to see it at least through to a point which you think this is it. It's up and running, and it's going to be done. So that's for me, a real passion that we get that completed. And the second, as I've said pretty much since becoming chair, is the board needs to be renewed, and it is in the process of being renewed. New people, new backgrounds, and new perspectives. This will definitely be the last general meeting in which I'm chairman. It has practically become a full-time job defending the rights of leaseholders, fairly exhausting.
That's
but
funny.
I will see it through to the end. I'm not a quitter, and I stand up to those who I think are acting in a bullying or intimidating way.
That's for you, though. Goodness me.
I'd like to stay on to at least see the job done well, and to meet the expectations of members. So we've got a couple of questions. I hope you don't mind. So Jack Log, can you commit to being more professional in future? I, like many leaseholders, have been disturbed by videos of you insinuating using Colin's letter as toilet paper. I understand why you did this. I just don't think it's a very professional way to act. I would like to see the end of the bitching on Facebook. Yeah, absolutely, end of bitching. I've always had this view, when somebody is fanatical almost, the way to combat it is humour. Very rarely does somebody who's fanatical have a sense of humour, and occasionally they need to be gently poked fun at, and it's what I did. If those
yeah, it's
people
bullying.
Are,
that's bullying.
Upset, stop sending shed loads of unnecessary correspondence, which wastes the company's time. And yeah, so am I going to apologise? No, I'm not going to apologise for it. I think that people who need to apologise are other individuals who have made the lives of some of the directors and indeed the members of Cheney's pretty horrific over the last few weeks.
Why is it horrific? Why are you horrified? I'm just asking for the accounts.
And the case says, shame on you all. This was the most dishonest meeting I have attended in many years in business. That's really a question. And then a question for Andrew from Des. Andrew, can you explain why you support the chair in posting a video of him using leaseholders' information whilst on the toilet?
I don't support that. Each member, part of Victory Hill Management Company Limited, are at their liberty to express their own personal opinions on matters.
For those who didn't see it, I hasten to add this was not X-rated by any stretch of the imagination. It was more an insinuation of what some of that paperwork could have been used for. Okay.
It's time to put your trousers down. I think that's pretty.
Right, so can you load the voting, please?
Yeah, hold with me a second. Okay, being pasted now into the chat. Okay, and we'll be back at 1:15.
While people are voting, so the next section is Q&A. Andrew, we've actually used up the time we voted to extend that. And again, I don't want, some people have left already, so I don't want people to, I want a mandate from those attending who would like to stay on. If not, we can either adjourn and go back to the Q&A, or we could say that we will answer everything on the chat box today offline and send written answers. But you able to get that ready?
Yeah, I think so. There's quite a few people who want to ask about cladding and other issues. I'm happy to hold another meeting like this just to answer those with Martin, even with Chris from Rich. So if there is a number of people who'd be interested in that, please indicate so. In the meantime, I'll get a. So just to be clear to me, Matt, you're asking me to do.
Letting the members present decide whether they want to continue with this meeting or not. If not, we can make other arrangements because it's the Q&A and closing the comments that are left. So I'm happy for members to decide.
Okay, there should be a poll on your screen for staying on for the Q&A.
Oh, I've got one. Okay, so if you're watching this live or you're watching it later on, then I understand this is the tail end of the meeting. Basically, nothing's been able to be communicated between each other.
Being in a room where they can't ask any questions. The way this webinar works is that attendees can ask questions through the Q&A. There isn't a separate place for me to put anybody. The only thing
you're putting into the rooms.
If I move you to be able to speak, at that point you can't ask a question because you're effectively a panelist. But once I remove you back to being an attendee, you should be able to ask any questions you want.
Isn't quite how it works. So we've got.
Sorry, I can't seem to find the link for the adjournment vote.
Forgive me, it's on the screen. I've done it via the Zoom itself. You should be able to see it.
Nope.
So they've gone, everything has gone in their favour. They had a very defamatory comments being made in a pack, which has no doubt then got them every vote that they wanted. When in fact, the controlling nature of this company needs to be aware for members because it's not in members' interest for this to be allowed. And we've tried to be very professional and inform them of this. Members were already voted for the removal and appointment of Anne and myself. And after the defamatory comments, we naturally only get 14%.
So I've got the stay on box showing progress, but I don't know how to vote on this. It says end polling at the bottom.
Should have allowed you to vote. May well be because you are panelists, you can't. Okay, if you give me 2 minutes, I will resend it via the Google link. So I'm going to get rid of this polling and resend it.
Okay.
So not a lot happening at the moment. It's just a complete sham meeting. If any example of company law could be put in place to say why this, if it was taken to any court, would not be seen as being unfair, when you're unable to speak on resolutions that I'm actually putting forward, it is definitely going to be seen as an biased position. Yeah, I mean, these are people not put in place because of any effort or they're put in as volunteers that you as members have voted for, and effectively they've just not voted on a fair basis. Would it be any different? Yes, the Financial Commons made a massive input, and the second massive input would have been the ability for every leaseholder, not each member, which is what they're saying, because they basically removed a membership if someone has more than one property. This needs to be taken to a high court in order for it to be qualified, because this is very unfair.
Result of that vote to be directed in just a second. I am now about to share in the chat the vote to adjourn. You can please complete that. Thank you. Okay, voting is finished on removal of directors. Are you ready, Matt?
Yes.
Okay. We're 52%, so some people have decided to move on tonight. 52% of participation for the appointment of for the removal of Wayne Buckley is 12%, against is 88%, so the resolution is rejected.
So to clarify, the proposal to remove Wayne as a director is rejected.
Correct.
Okay, certified.
The proposal to remove Martin Edge as a director, 11% for, 89% against. The resolution is rejected.
Certified.
And removal of Matt Garvey as director, 11% for, 89% against. Resolution rejected.
Certified. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. We are going to move on to your questions and answers. And I'm hoping that somebody in the background has been collating those which perhaps widely reflect the concerns, interests of those attending. Has that been done, Andrew? Have you got a bank?
There's quite a few to go through. I'll come to them in a second. Hopefully, all the directors have been answering those directly with a number of residents who have asked more specific questions. I just want to, for a second, share my screen so that everyone can see the full results of those votes. There'll be a number of people who want to check on those. Take a screenshot if you wish. We will let everybody have details of those certified with the minutes.
There's no numbers and no record of who voted for what.
How individuals voted. It's been conducted as a secret, confidential ballot.
That's very convenient, isn't it?
Okay, let me try and go back through the...
We have a right to see that, to verify the forms.
Can you publish the plan for cladding and indicate what occupiers we are required to do, i.e. the removal of stuff from the balcony, enclosed windows and little summer, etc.? Yes, all that will be done as part of the consultation with residents. Sorry, I'm trying to look through to see there's one I can answer. There are lots of questions on cladding. As I said, more than happy to arrange a meeting, perhaps a week or so's time, for anyone who has any specific questions on that. There are a few
Right,
specific
we'll ask
questions.
everyone to verify the voting forms. That's been put on a message to them.
More details on how the funding and what stage we're at with that. So what I'll do is undertake to arrange a Zoom meeting where I can be present with Chris, who's a representative from Ridge, Martin and Stuart, who are the lead directors on that, so we can answer those questions. So questions on cladding, I will come back to under a separate point. Accounts, I feel that I've answered those, and we talked about the accounting. There was a question about how many of the directors are resident in the development.
So Oliver and Sheriff are, and Ed. I think, is that right? 3 of the current directors are resident. Andrew?
Yes, sorry, forgive me, I'm trying to look at the questions at the same time. Yes, correct.
John has asked a question. Could you reconfirm blocks affected? I think this is the cladding. Could you just clarify that, Andrew?
It's cherry, elm, and holly. If you're not sure of the numbers, I'm conscious actually through this process that the decision to change the names of the blocks was made a few years ago, but there was a particular number of particularly investment owners who didn't realise that had happened, despite the communications on it. If you're not sure, just email help at Hathaway and Sarah will reply to you to let you know if that's the case. But we would have written to you already if you were affected directly on those blocks. But if you're unsure, just contact us.
Thank you. David says, what happens if we don't manage to get 75% of the leaseholders to sign the state aid declaration?
So on the sort of 2 or 3 other projects that I'm working on where they didn't give a specific number, but they said, look, it needs to be above 75%. They want 100%, but it needs to be above 75%. So we'll be pushing over the next couple of weeks to get all of those in. So long as at the point that we hit the button for the funding, that those are in, so we've still got a couple of months, then it won't be a problem. But we will be chasing everyone up to answers to those state aid questions.
And John G, a member has claimed that service fees, service charges are not due as accounts were not filed in time. Is this true?
Let's separate out account filing from service charge accounts. So the company is effectively dormant and issues dormant company accounts because the money is held on trust under the RSS Code of Practice and under the Landlord and Tenant Act. So Victory Hill Management Company Limited doesn't per se, the transactions don't go through there. And I see Simon's appeared, so perhaps you want to answer this one better than me. Do you want to say your bit, Simon?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a very, very clear distinction of what people are saying, because there's been a lot of misinformation going out on this. Under the terms of the lease, service charge accounts are due on the 1st of January of every year. These have to be supported by a budget, which is approved by the directors. This is company law. And I can assure you that no service charges have been issued which have not been approved, not been supported by an approved budget. Where Colin Davidson misleads everybody is the fact that he says that accounts need to be filed for a particular year before service charge accounts are demanded. This is totally untrue. What is required is that the management company, Victory Hill Management Company, cannot ask for the deficit, i.e. ask you to pay slightly more than what was budgeted, or in fact credit you back until they have issued accounts, service charge accounts that are certified by the accountants. And therefore it is we need to put that very, very clear. Service charge accounts are demanded on the 1st of January. They become overdue on the second, either the first or second business day after the 1st of January, depending on when the 1st of January is due. So basically, after that date, you are in arrears, and you need to be very mindful of this information.
That's not quite true, because otherwise they wouldn't have an 18-month rule, would you?
A lot of unanswered questions, over 300. Many of them are just statements.
So you're just going to ignore everything that I've asked for questions? That's interesting. That's unfair and prejudiced against me.
So there's a question here from Enrico, which was asking about, sorry, I've lost it, but the summary was, is the cost of scaffolding covered by the application for the government funding?
Yes. Yes, it is.
So I'll read it. Can the cost of the scaffolding and everything possible within the law be paid through the government funding? So this could decrease as much as possible the cost that leaseholders have to face, as the company doing the works will still receive the same amount of money. Basically, to try and do as much as possible to increase the money taken from the government fund and decrease what the leaseholders have to pay. So it's a really good point. The short answer is yes. Of course, the key phrase you've used is within the law. So it's going to be obvious when we submit the bid if we try to use the fund for things that can't be. But having the scaffolding up will enable us to, for example, look at pigeon proofing, external cleaning, as well as the other issues that Martin and Andrew have mentioned. Martin, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, we could add a lot, Matt, but I think your summary there is enough to answer that question. And I agree with Andrew that we could do with another session, just simply on cladding.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. There's been a couple of questions for a follow-up meeting just on cladding, which I think we do need to do. It's going to become a fairly fast-moving situation. We'll need to keep everybody, including residents, up to date on what the implications are once that cladding goes up. I think the other thing is we want to start lobbying for a really unfair and subjective rule about the height of buildings. So I don't think those who are in a building like birch and fir should be disadvantaged by being made to have a loan rather than a grant. From experience, having to contract with government, lobbying your MP really does work, and it's a high-profile issue. So what I've asked Jamies and Martin to do is kind of draft a sort of template letter for the MP that we can send out that you can adapt, and you can send it to the MP for Basingstoke, Maria Miller. But if you live outside of Basingstoke, you can also send it to your own MP. And as I say, it's effective. They're aware of it, and I believe that the moral basis for making those in smaller blocks pay simply isn't there. John Green asks, do we have legal action in place against debtors? There is a process. Andrew, can you summarise it?
Yeah, sorry, just to come back on you, the vote on the second adjournment for was 52%, 51%, against was 48%, so it's quite close. But I think I feel like we're getting to the end of this anyway, and though most of the questions are on cladding and also any other specific questions, we will list out and attempt to answer. 5 minutes, and if leaseholders are not happy with that, then they can contact us individually and we'll deal with those accordingly. In terms of the arrears recovery, yeah, I mean, those who pay on time probably won't know, but those that don't, there's a reminder letter, sort of a final notice with an admin fee, and then it gets passed over to the solicitors to recover. At that point, your mortgage lender is also written to, payment's not forthcoming, and it gets taken to court.
Okay.
But when you object to it because of a dispute, you don't then come back.
Chat. There's been nothing kind of new and constructive in terms of questions for a little while in the chat box. So let's let's say we'll go through everything in there that hasn't been covered, that has some meaningful purpose, and we'll answer them offline. What we'll ask Jamie to do is sort of do an FAQ page following this that people can then be directed to if they want to get a further summary of questions that we didn't get around to answering, and also put together a meeting, not a general meeting, but a leaseholder update on cladding. So the final thing is Chairman's closing remarks. I'm going to ask instead, if you're having to listen to me, Simon Hurst has asked if he could make a comment on behalf of the board, which I'm happy to do. So I'm going to hand over to Simon. Simon, are you there?
Right, yeah.
What a show, eh, guys?
So
you can't see me. Oh, there we are. Can you just repeat that, Matt? I was just...
Yeah, very quickly. So I've said that, given I've said a lot already, there is an option for closing remarks, and I've asked you to make those closing remarks on my behalf and the board's behalf.
I think that there was an interesting post earlier this evening from a lady who said that we should continue to support the directors, the current directors, for what they've done and what they're doing. And the key thing is that we must remember that we, because I've joined recently, are all unpaid volunteers.
You're not, you're all interested parties, no such thing as volunteers.
When I saw what was going on, I had to say that there was absolutely, it was just unacceptable, the abuse, of a really vile abuse that was being sent around regarding, from 3 individuals against the current board. I think some of it was, it was really vile and unacceptable. And I think that it...
What was vile? We were asking for sets of accounts, financial records.
Support current directors. So I've come on board to support them and give a lot of historical background to what's
No, they
going
can't
on.
produce accounts. That's why you've got
all members over the next few weeks to continue to support the current directors. And I would like to thank Matt for his leadership, Wayne, Martin and Jazz for everything that they've had to put up with, and also the support of the other directors. And we know that we are going to be calling another meeting shortly, so that the new resolutions that have been voted this evening can be incorporated into the new Articles of Association. And I think that we just owe a great vote of thanks to Matt and the other directors for all the hard work that they are putting in to protect the investment of all the members of this company.
Thank you, Simon. That's very kind of you, and I certainly echo my appreciation for the board.
Very staged, isn't it? Very staged.
Deal with difficult circumstances, and things like cladding are difficult without the shenanigans we've had to put up with. Okay, we're going to sort of bring it to a close there. As we've mentioned, the unanswered questions will be summarised and put in a page. Another meeting to talk about cladding will be tabled so people can visit, and we'll just talk about cladding and get you up to date. I, as always, extend my appeal to people who would genuinely like to be involved in the board. It is, you don't have to have expertise. What you need to have is some good judgment.
Well, judgment, you need to make sure you get the accountants to produce the accounts.
and a bit
We still haven't heard why the 2018
roughly
accounts have
is
not been produced.
2 hours a month for a meeting. You can come along and just sit and watch one if you like. You don't have to commit, but it's a voluntary role. It can only operate when there's a vibrant and committed board. So that appeal goes out to you. And as I said, by the time we meet again for AGM, by the time the next AGM, I won't be chair. I've made that quite clear to the board. I want somebody to take over. So I would like to say thank you for your trust in me as your chair. It's been 70% pleasure.
They didn't actually vote for you, did they, members? You elected yourself.
Through to the end, the beginning or the majority of the cladding issue, and then someone else, let's hope somebody with real energy, vibe, good ideas and enthusiasm will take over the next stage of leadership of our estate. When I first bought at Winchester Way, I went, wow. When I first saw it, that was my feeling. I wanted to live there. And I want to really, we all want that back. And we understand it's been a challenge.
Bit difficult when you got green on the outside of the building, because you cut back on the maintenance spend.
Thank you very much. And we hope to engage you again on the cladding very soon.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Go and see what Boris has said, and I, like you, probably need to check when we're allowed to go and get a haircut, because this is not good. Thank you all, and see you again soon.